Devon Miller's situation.
Mike Danger.
The Bills traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. It's a big one. Chiefs week. You got to get it. This is one you have to have.
Gene Battaglia.
It's the attitude. It's the attitude adjustment I want to see.
Go into
Arrowhead and knock some heads around.
And I think Sean McDermott's good off the bye.
We got to win these 5. I'm convinced that this game is going to be a global sport. I think you're going to see a very global NFL.
The Red Wings are going to win this game. Final score is 5-3.
I would prefer that we gain the line with entry.
Absolutely incredible in-season tournament that's going on in the association.
Baseball's hot stove is getting warm. That Juan Soto trade, again, it appears likely that he'll be a Yankee.
Ow! The Red Sox and Yankees made a trade yesterday, headlined by outfielder Alex Verdugo heading to the Bronx.
It's showtime!
That's private.
Everybody found a new reason to blame Dave Roberts for something.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Hey, good afternoon. Pull up a stool and join us. Welcome on into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app, and we've got our video stream up for you now. You can watch the sports bar at The Fan Rochester on YouTube and on Twitch. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there. I'm Mike Danger. Over there, that's Gene Battaglia.
It's like the new car smell here in the studio today. So it's a little unnerving that we have new microphones that are like half the size. I'm just getting used to this. Mm-hmm. How's it sound?
It remains to be seen. I know we've got people monitoring right now and listening. I can tell you right now that when I back up like this, I can. It's a little wide. It feels a little wider when I'm listening. If that makes sense. I just know that the old microphones had to go. They couldn't handle the heat that you and I spit every single afternoon here in the sports bar. So we needed something with a little bit more, just a little bit more weight, a little bit more heft, which is what we have with these new studio microphones.
That or just the other ones are so old. I remember this is going back a couple reporters from the era. Do you remember this story? Erica White came into the studio. She used to be the reporter for the Amerks and Nighthawks. And she looked at the microphone like, I can't talk into that. It's like, oh, it was pretty grody.
It's like a piece of Wheeze's dentures in there. Oh, look, there's a pastrami sandwich from Giants wedged in the mesh of the microphone. That's cute.
Oh, some cigarette smoke from Joe Capagreco that's making its way in.
So, new microphones in the studio, and a big thank you to Derek, the pizza dude, for hooking us up. I mean, I know for him, this is like sex. I mean, he sees these things like, yes, let's get these microphones in the studio. Yes, look at how good they are. Look at how great they are. So I'm gonna reserve judgment. I'm not gonna say anything negative about the new microphones, but I subtly can tell just a little bit of a difference in how I sound and how you sound. And you know what we hear a lot, by the way, when we go out, when we have the chance to talk to you, more on that in a second, is that Gino and I sound alike. We hear that a lot. Like, I can't tell you guys apart. You have to say, I'm Mike Danger, he's Gene Battaglia, and your voices are very similar.
Which I don't get for 1 second, because I'm Mike Danger, I'm on 98 PXY. You have the professional voice. I'm fumbling around over here.
Pizza Dude claims that this will now make it a lot more clear and distinct as far as who's who on the show. That's his claim, that you'll be able to tell that I am Mike Danger and that he is Gene Battaglia magically now, more easier now because of these new studio microphones. So, it's a new day.
You don't
have
to say
bar.
We hear that. We hear that on the show where guests they misidentify us.
One of our guests will be joining us today. Did it famously
5 times.
5 times. The first time we had it. Well, how far we've come with our buddy PJ Glasser. And you were on with him earlier today.
I was talking about the Chiefs and Bills. And spoiler alert, because I had to make a pick, right? It's weird. You know where the line is right now? It's gone down to 1.5. It has gone down today. Now, why? What is that? There's a lot of money coming in on Buffalo. And I told PJ, it looks like a trap, and I'm going right into the trap here. How could you not take the Chiefs at home, hardly giving up anything here? And he kind of agreed on that. He was asking for player props, and I told him, don't get on the Gabe Davis wagon. I'm sorry. Yes, he popped in Philadelphia, but it is just way too up and down. Look at Khalil Shakir. Maybe look at Dalton Kincaid as secondary options there. We'll get PJ's thoughts here on some of the plays in the NFL, and also the college football playoff. Is there anything to be said for getting in on the action right now a little early?
Yeah. PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In, where Gene made an appearance earlier today. He'll be joining us here at around 3:25. Odyssey Sports Betting Insider and Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. By the way, Week 14 gets underway tomorrow night. Barn burner of a game between the Patriots and the Steelers. Did you see what the over-under on that game is at right now?
Let me guess, 30?
It's at 30. Yeah, I got it at 30.5. It's like Iowa, except professionally. It's insane.
And it'll go under.
Yeah, we'll talk to PJ about that and more here in just a few. And joining us in the 4 o'clock hour with his practice report from the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park, Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports.
Yeah, so he'll be on his way back from Orchard Park. We're going to get into a lot of this today. I mean, the good news for the Buffalo Bills today is they're getting a little healthier. There were some guys that are still dinged up, but we'll get Dan Fates' thoughts on everything happening with the Buffalo Bills, including one Von Miller. Dan Fates in the 4 o'clock hour.
You can join us anytime at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool here in the sports bar. We heard from Brandon Beane today coming out of the bye. We heard from Sean McDermott today coming out of the bye. And you mentioned it, Von Miller, of course, the number one story that everybody wanted to know about. And opinions are kind of split on this one, Gino. I think there are some people, some fans, who can't really comprehend why Von Miller is on the field, why Von Miller is on this team. Did the Bills, as an organization, fail to do the right thing, or is the right thing actually letting the process play out, not punishing a guy until you have all of the facts and everything is in place?
Or is today just Wednesday and the story is fluid and it could change by the time Sunday comes around? I think that's also part of it. I don't want to wave my finger. If we learned anything from the Matt Araiza situation where something looks bad on the outside until you get all the details, you have to let the authorities do their job for good or bad. But there was one thing that Brandon Beane said today. I was like, wish he hadn't said it or phrased that something differently here.
We've got plenty of Brandon Beane talking about Von Miller. If you're a fan wondering if Von Miller should play, Brandon Beane earlier today.
Every week we're trying to put the best 48 players. That's, doesn't matter what, name it says on your jersey or number. We're trying to put the best 48 out there to win. And yes, that will continue to be evaluated every week. And if we feel that, Von is not one of the best 48 that week or all the weeks, then that's what we'll do. But we're hoping it's around a year now that he's had that surgery, and sometimes, it just takes time. I think you saw that with Trey last year as well. It's hard when you in a situation where you have an injured player that misses all the offseason and all a training camp, OTA's training camp. You can't really replicate a training camp. So you're trying to work them back, yet practices are not like training camp practices. And then you're in the games and you're trying to find that number of snaps. He's played less snaps than he's ever played. That's a fine line too, because you also have to be like a basketball shooter. You got to get up enough shots to start feeling your rhythm. And so all those things are into consideration. But, every game we're truly going to try and, we got to win these 5. So we're going to try to put out the best 48 we can.
I know I'm pulling that specific quote out of context in that he did, mention Von Miller and whether or not he should be disciplined and all of the things that he said in his opening statement about Von Miller. But isn't Brandon Beane just a great politician? Not once did he talk about anything off the field other than Von Miller the player, Von Miller the injury, Von Miller the recovery, the team needing to win these games, the team needing to get the best 48 players. I mean, no mention at all of any of the off-field issues concerning Von Miller.
Right, but this was, and I don't know if we have it or not here, but the idea that Brandon Beane calling the allegations serious while adding that they seemed out of character for a person he's come to know over the past year.
All right, so let me start from the beginning with Brandon Beane's opening statement here. 30 seconds of Brandon Beane on Von Miller.
Obviously, we were made aware last Thursday about the situation regarding Vaughn. About probably the similar time that you guys heard about it. Checked in with his agent, and then obviously with the NFL, and as you probably read or heard, there was multiple versions of what happened, and so there's not a lot that I can say. Vaughn is here; he'll be a part of the team, and we'll let the investigation and we'll follow the lead of the NFL from that standpoint.
Okay, so there's your standard kind of company line statement.
No issues, right, with that opening comment? No.
What about the Brandon Beane? What about Brandon Beane talking about Von Miller and whether or not he should be disciplined?
You have to let it play out, I guess, is the best way to say. We don't. I mean, if you get into sitting guys or disciplining guys without the right information, that can be a little bit dangerous too. We weren't there. We're not the investigators. We don't, obviously, we had our conversations with Vaughn and understood, what he believes happened. And so from that standpoint, we can't get into it. It's an open investigation. And so we'll just, we'll let the legal process play out and he'll participate like normal in practice.
Any thought to the release of Von Miller, Brandon Beane earlier?
I don't think we have a lot of information other than our conversation with Vaughn and his representatives in the league. Like, other than, the media reports and things like that. So we've not been able to have conversations with people who were on the scene investigating the call and things like that. So, it's very early in the process, and those people in Dallas aren't just going to get they're not worried about the Buffalo Bills. They're going to do what they do on the timeline that they do it. And again, we'll take the lead of the NFL for how we move forward.
I mean, we kind of knew that this was exactly what the Bills were going to do and how the Bills were going to respond and how the Bills were going to react. But as of right now, it doesn't feel like Von Miller is going on any sort of paid leave. Commissioner's exempt list isn't being brought up, and he's back at practice and will play this weekend.
There was an out here, and maybe this would happen. Does anybody think that Von Miller has added anything of value to the Buffalo Bills defense this year? I'm just talking about 2023. Just from a football standpoint. And don't give me the leadership thing, because leadership can come from any one of these guys on this team. You could still just make him inactive. And you could just say, and that's what Beane's saying, we want to put the best 47 on the field, regardless of name or number. That's the seed he might be planting here, because I could make the argument that A.J. Epineza deserves more snaps, or maybe allow Kingsley Jonathan more snaps. And therefore, you're sitting Von aside, and you're actually, in my opinion, trying to help your team win football games here, because Von Miller on the field has done nothing this year. He came back too soon.
Head coach Sean McDermott also spoke to the media today, and he had some thoughts on the Von Miller situation.
Listen, I will say that it's a very serious situation. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is very serious, and something that we take very seriously. I take very seriously. Beyond that, again, we've discussed that internally since the time it happened, or the reports that came out, and so. Beyond that, I'm not going to address it right now. Brandon addressed it. We obviously met on it. We've had great communication about it and collaboration, and it is a very, very serious situation and something we don't take lightly at all.
And Sean McDermott also addressed the play of Von Miller so far this season.
Well, I think like anything else, you try and evaluate every week, every day at practice, and we'll do that today and as well as tomorrow. Some of what we're doing is to continue to try and get him where he was a year ago. And that's why I mentioned what I mentioned. That process took place last week as a staff. We sat down and said, hey, what else can we do to continue to try and move this thing? And so that's the plan that was put together by our medical staff.
Yeah, you're not seeing Von Miller inactive this weekend. He'll be out there. Hard to imagine that they would view him as not one of the best 48 players on the field, even though he hasn't played like one of the best 48 players.
No, honestly, Danger. I will listen to the argument that maybe before any of this happened, get him off the field, give him a month, and maybe he could get right there if you need a stretch run in the postseason. We're going to have to find that soundbite where Brandon Beane is talking about that doesn't seem like the character that we know of Von Miller. And I would just kind of ask him the question, did you not do your due diligence or anything when you brought him in?
Right. And this pattern of behavior may not be all on Von Miller, but it might be on who Von Miller associates with as well. But it certainly is a pattern because it's not like this happened 15 years ago once. No, this happened just a couple of years ago while he was still in Denver, something similar. And you kind of knew that you kind of know that you're running that risk. Von Miller gives off the impression that he's not capable of any of this. That this is not the kind of guy that he is. When you hear him speak, when you spend time around him, when you watch him on the field, all of that. But we're not there. We don't know. None of us do.
No, but I go back to, some things stick with you when you're a kid, right? And if you grew up in Greece, if you live in Greece and you're driving down Long Pond Road, there's Brookside Elementary. I went to Brookside Elementary. And my 5th grade teacher was Mr. Lown. And Mr. Lown, first day of class, before any of us knew who he was, taught us about accountability. And he wrote on the blackboard, you are responsible for the position you are in. And he made us recite that. And to this day, I remember that. So where you could say, well, it's the situation, and maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Von Miller is in this situation. He is responsible for being in this situation.
For sure. Absolutely. I love that you got accountability lessons in 5th grade. If more people got those accountability,
if you're a teacher, put that on the blackboard. It'll stick with your students.
It's a great lesson. I don't know that most kids know what accountability means. Like you hear that word and you're like, well, what? Accountability? I don't understand. What is that? It is you being responsible for the position that you are in. And for Von Miller, it's the choices that you make and the people that you associate with that have you where you are right now. Now, Von Miller aside, the team did get back on the practice field, and Von Miller was on the practice field. We also saw the return of Dawson Knox, the 21-day window for him to return, the practice window for him to return off of
Von Miller was not on the practice.
Oh, he was not on the practice field today.
No. Veterans Day of Rest. That's why I'm saying they're threading a needle here. Now, others have pointed out that coming off the bye, the Bills have given the Veterans Day a rest, but Von Miller did not practice today.
Here's Sean McDermott on other injury updates and player statuses heading into Kansas City.
All right, so Dawson Knox, we're going to open up his practice window starting today, as well as Kyer Elam, Dane Jackson, and I should mention your follow-up question to those two is, are they going to play? We're going to take it one day at a time. With both of those guys. Dane Jackson cleared concussion protocol. Taylor Rapp had the neck. He'll return to practice full today. And then Von Miller is on a veteran rest day today, really getting him back to his routine that we worked at together last year. I'm trying to replicate that now that we have moved ahead a little bit in terms of days on the calendar. So. And this was planned previous to obviously the latest happenings here. So they are separate situations altogether. So with that, I'll turn it over to you with your questions.
You did say Taylor Rapp is full, Coach. I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you. And then Von will practice full tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. So there. Okay. Then McDermott clarifying there. The official report just came out too. Everybody practicing full except for Miller today.
Okay. So that was planned before everything, though, right. Based on the calendar and the days that have advanced, I think is what he said. Something like that. Like, you should play that again.
The calendar, the days of it.
Where is it? What are you actually saying there, Coach? All right, so we are one day closer to the weekend, one day closer to Bills Chiefs. You'll be able to hear the action Sunday afternoon. Our pregame coverage gets underway at 12 noon, and because it's Chiefs week, it is a special week. We'll be taking the show live Friday afternoon. Put this in your calendar. Make a little note in your phone to join Gino and I at Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the Arts for Friday Football Talk Live. We'll be there from 3 until 6. We'll have some special guests stopping by, and of course, all of our regulars love hanging out with you. Love our friends at Three Heads for hosting us once again for a Friday Football Talk Live.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Don't tease me, Three Heads. If you've got the Sprucifer on tap, you know your boy's going to be indulging a little bit there. So
I would love to have the Nighthawks Hazy IPA as well. Now then,
such a hit.
Yeah, the Nighthawks are heading to Saskatchewan, so they're not going to be able to come over and try it with us. But you, the Nighthawk fan, can come on over.
An absolute hit. So we'll be looking for you. That's Friday afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock. Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the Arts. Friday Football Talk Live with the Sports Bar, Danger, and Battaglia. Next, we get into some Week 14 winners in the NFL. We talk some college football playoff with Odyssey Sports Betting Insider and the host of BetQL's Send It In. Stand by for PJ Glasser on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Update.
Von Miller did not participate in practice today, just a Veterans Day of rest. He is scheduled to practice tomorrow. For now, things are status quo for the defender's status as the investigation continues in Dallas. Head coach Sean McDermott asked if the investigation, Miller, will prevent him from playing on Sunday.
I'd start by saying those are separate to start, and I think that's important that they stay there, but every situation is a little bit different.
The line has moved on this game. Kansas City now a 1.5-point favorite. What does that mean? We'll get the thoughts of our expert, PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In on the BetQL Network. He'll join us next year in the Sports Bar. Sabres lost their 4th in a row last night to Detroit. They're in Boston tomorrow. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen remains ill, so Devin Levi remaining up with the Sabres. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
We're going against a heck of an opponent at their place, Super Bowl champs, and it's going to be a great challenge. We're going to have to play for a whole game. We're going to have to play really well and sustain our level of play for 4 quarters or however long it goes.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott. It's Chiefs week. We'll talk about that and other NFL action as Week 14 gets underway tomorrow night. He is the host of Send It In and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, PJ Glasser. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. And PJ, I think it's only fair you come into the sports bar every week. We force you to give us a name in a Baltimore accent. And you had Gino on your show earlier today. Did you ask him about the PGA's John Rahm while you had him on just to get him to give you a Western New York accent in return?
Yeah, there's plenty of names like that where PJ probably doesn't know this story. PJ, for years, before he became big, I was like, hey, what about John Rahm? It's not John Rahm.
I remember you guys saying that. No, unfortunately, no John Rahm talk today, guys. But I want to know how Buffalo is going to stop this Kansas City running back who's been really good for the Chiefs this season.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not talking Jerick McKinnon. I'm talking Isaiah Pacheco. And if Buffalo is going to be able to keep him intact this weekend.
He's coming off of what did he have, an injury last week? What was his deal late in that game? No, did he get Did he get ejected? What was Pacheco's deal at the end of the Green Bay game?
Kicked out, yeah.
I can't remember what the end of the game was. Oh yeah, he threw a punch. That's right.
That's
on
right.
that pick.
Isaiah Pacheco, a good one, PJ. Great pull, and we're off and running with PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In. And before we talk NFL, PJ, we've spent so much time this year talking college football with you, and you've given us our fair share of winners week in and week out this season. I don't know, man. I mean, this weekend was nuts. It's something like we'd never seen for the college football playoff that's upcoming, and I'm of the belief that two things can be true, that the College Football Playoff Committee got it right and that Florida State absolutely got screwed.
100%. Daniel, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say the exact same thing. I think both things are true, right? Florida State won all their games. They're an undefeated team. They deserve to be in. But, again, if you go by the committee's guidelines, and they have been telling us for the last decade that they are going to put the 4 best teams in, and it doesn't feel like they've always done that. And you just watched that game against Louisville, guys, on Saturday. Obviously, you watched the SEC championship. And, you know, if you want to make the argument that maybe Florida State could have been competitive with the backup quarterback and with how good their defense is, maybe that's true. But I think most would agree that Alabama certainly looks like the better team. So it sucks for Florida State. If Travis was healthy, they obviously would be in the playoff. But we got 2 elite matchups, guys. I can't remember a time where we've entered the playoff and you could ask 4 different people who's going to win the title, and I think you could get 4 different answers, and it's going to make for 2 awesome games. I can't wait.
Yeah, and this is a really fun time of year for people that love action, PJ. And before we ask you about, all these other bowl games that I'm sure there might be some value in, what about the 2 playoff games here? Is there anything to be said for putting things down now on Michigan, Alabama, and certainly Texas and Washington? How do you view these 2 matchups?
Gene, I like Bama in the Rose Bowl against Michigan. I've seen this movie before. The last two times Nick Saban has lost a home game, Bama has gone on to win the national championship. They obviously lost to Texas earlier this year, and maybe they just got that team of destiny feel to them. The 4th and 31 against Auburn, you end Georgia's 29-game losing streak. You find yourself into the playoff, and now you have a chance to play Michigan and then maybe get a revenge against Texas or something like that. But I like the way Milroe's playing, guys. He's taking care of the football. They're running the ball well. Their offensive line's protecting, and their defense is very good. Both teams have two really good offensive lines. To me, it's going to come down to the quarterbacks and how they play. You know, McCarthy's kind of been on cruise control. Michigan hasn't really needed him to win them a game yet this year. He's going to need to do that. He's going to need to play the best game probably he's had as a Wolverine if they want to win this one. And then we'll see if Michigan's secondary can hold up against Bama's passing attack. But I like the Tide in that game. And then I love the over in Texas and Washington, 64.5. Obviously, Washington with their passing attack, their three receivers. Penix, you give him a month to try and get healthy. And, I mean, the last two times we've seen Texas against Texas Tech and Oak State, Ewers looks healthy. Their receivers are awesome. Sark's, in my opinion, the best play caller in the game. That's going to be on a fast track in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans on the turf. So I don't think they can set that total high enough. I like the over in Texas-Washington. I like Bama in the Rose Bowl.
And PJ, were you surprised at the outcome of the Pac-12 championship? Because going into that game, knowing that Oregon was favored the way they were, I mean, the disrespect on undefeated Washington team going into that game and a guy in Penix who's probably going to win the Heisman Trophy. Did that outcome surprise you a little bit from Friday night?
I wasn't surprised that they won, Danger. I would say I was surprised that the spread got as high as it did. You know, like 9.5, 10. I mean, that's a lot of points, right? I could have seen 7, 7.5. But once it was 9.5, 10, I thought that was too many. Washington, I kept saying it. I just thought that they were this year's TCU. They've won 9 straight games now by 10 or less points, and it's not always pretty. They probably don't deserve to win some of these games, but they just keep winning, and they're undefeated. And, you know, I know Texas is rolling. I know a lot of people are going to like them to win that game, but it's tough for me in college football when we get these teams, it feels like every year, that are undefeated. They're having these magical seasons. They probably should have lost a couple games, and they just don't lose. We saw with TCU last year, they upset Michigan. So it would be tough for me to bet against Washington in that game against Texas.
So we have 10 days from today, PJ, the beginning of the bowl season. So many games, so many options here. What jumps out at you?
So, guys, there are 3 I'll give you right off the bat. The first one is Troy and Duke. I like Troy at -7. There are certain things when you look for when you're handicapping bowls. Obviously, the first thing in the word that people will hear over the next month is motivation. And for Duke, obviously, what's their motivation in this bowl? But also, they're going to be without their head coach, our friend Mike Elko, who's off to Texas A&M. And then Riley Leonard will also not be there as well. Troy went 11-2, guys. You know, they had a great year. They won the Sun Belt. They get to go up against the Power 5 team. And that bowl game is in Birmingham. Troy is in Alabama, so they're going to have a huge fan contingency. I like Troy -7. Love Arizona in the Alamo Bowl against Oklahoma -3.5. Zona's got a chance to win 10 games for the first time in forever. Dillon Gabriel, the Oklahoma quarterback, is in the transfer portal, and we're just going to get a highly motivated Arizona team who, by the way, is like one of the hottest teams in college football. They won like 7 games in a row. So love Arizona in that game. And then I like Missouri in a -1.5 against Ohio State. They actually opened as 6.5-point dogs in that game in the Cotton Bowl against Mizzou. Now they're 1.5-point dogs. I love the Tigers, guys. First New Year's Six Bowl in the history for Missouri football. Only 2 losses this year were to Georgia and LSU. They're a really good team. And for Ohio State, no Kyle McCord, no Marvin Harrison. They're going to have other guys that sat out. You lost to Michigan for the 3rd year in a row. You thought you had a chance at playing in the playoff, playing in the title game, and now you got to turn around and you got to play in the Cotton Bowl. So I don't think Ohio State's going to be very motivated. Missouri's going to treat this like their Super Bowl. Love Mizzou, -1.5.
PJ Glasser's the host of BetQL. Send it in, and he's stopping by the sports bar here to give us some winners, not just for college football bowl season, but also for Week 14 in the NFL, which gets underway tomorrow night. And this is an Iowa type of over-under that we're looking at here between the Patriots and the Steelers. I think I got it at 30.5 on FanDuel, PJ, and I'm still going under. Safe play to assume that that's going to be under 30.5?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way I could go, Danger. No chance I'm betting the under. I would actually look at the Patriots team total under. That's the way that I would attack that. It's at 12.5. Like, how are the Patriots getting to double digits in this game? That just feels way too high, right? Bailey Zappi, short week, going on the road, playing against that Steelers defense. I just, in a primetime game like that, guys, their last couple games, what they have done offensively, 0 against the Chargers, 7 against the Giants, 6 against the Colts in Indianapolis. They haven't scored over 10 points in a month. I don't think they're going to start with this game against Pittsburgh. So my favorite play is that team total under for the Patriots, 12.5.
We're talking to PJ Glasser, your host of Send It In on the BetQL Network. Before we get to the main entree here for our audience, that being Chiefs-Bills, and you and I talked about that earlier today, what about this Rams-Ravens matchup? The Rams getting 7 points, and it's a team that's just kind of hanging around there in the NFC playoff position. Is this finally the time where the Rams just kind of assert themselves, or are we ready? Is Baltimore ready to knock them back to the West Coast here, PJ?
Gene, for me, this is a real easy handicap. Lamar Jackson is 18-1 in his career against the NFC. We've seen him at home already this season against 2 NFC teams in the Lions and the Seahawks. Those games were blowouts. They weren't even close. This is what the Ravens do when they play NFC teams. They're coming off a bye week, so they're healthy, they're rested, and it's going to be bad weather in Baltimore on Sunday. They're calling for some rain, some wind. We're getting Los Angeles, who has to come in, play a 10 a.m. local kick, warm weather dome team playing outside in some nasty conditions. Ravens obviously want to run the football, so the conditions favors them, the spot favors them, and Lamar's track record against the NFC favors them. So getting that flat 7, I think, is a great number. I like Baltimore on Sunday.
Admittedly, I'm a Bears fan, and so I want to be careful with how I ask you about the Bears and the Lions, but I feel like Bears +4 might actually be okay, given the turnover machine that has become the Detroit Lions and how close these two teams played each other just a couple of weeks ago. Now in Chicago, your thoughts on this Lions-Bears matchup, PJ?
Yeah, Danger, I'm with you. I like your Bears +4. So, again, guys, things that people have to keep an eye on this weekend, there are going to be a ton of games affected by weather, right? So that Ravens-Rams game I touched on, the Jags-Browns game, Colts-Bengals, you're going to have some games where it's going to be nasty, it's going to be rainy, it's going to be cold, and it might be the worst in Chicago. And we know the Lions don't like it that way. They want to be indoors. They want Jared Goff comfortable. They don't want him in these games where he's got to deal with elements that are out of his control. And if the elements are bad, the Lions have a good offensive line. They like to run the ball anyways. Problem is, that's the strength of the Bears' defense. They have a pretty good run D. Fields is back. He always runs all over the Lions to begin with, and that's probably what he's going to need to do in this game. So I think the bad conditions favor Chicago. You mentioned they should have won that game against Detroit about 3 weeks ago. So I like the Bears +4 in this spot. I think they're going to play them tough. I'd maybe even take the money line. I think there's a chance maybe they win it outright.
All right, so I'm looking at the weather forecast right now for the Meadowlands, where the Jets will be 4-point. They're getting 4 points against the Texans. Who would have thought the Texans would be favored? But this is where the NFL is. The Jets going back to Zach Wilson. So with this being another crappy weather game here, are the Texans mature enough to cover the spread here, PJ?
All about the spot, gentlemen. Think about the last 2 games for the Texans, right? Home games against the Jags and the Broncos. 2 monster games with playoff implications, division implications. You get the split. I mean, you could see how fired up their sideline was, D'Amico Ryans was, after that stand against the Broncos at the end of the game. Now you got to turn around. You got to go to New York. You got to play in the Meadowlands. Again, the weather's not going to be good. And we have seen quarterbacks all year struggle against that Jets defense on the road. So Stroud's had an incredible year, but with the conditions and the spot, this is a hold your nose special, fellas, but it could only be the Jets or pass for me. I know it's no fun back in the Jets. They're not going to score you many points, but it's got to be New York or pass for me. This is the spot. This line's come down from 6.5 to 4. We know the public's not betting the Jets. That's sharp money that's bringing that line down. So the Jets are the right side. I think they force some turnovers. They score just enough to keep us within that number.
All right, before we talk about the passing Paisan on Monday night, let's talk about the game we've spent our time talking about all week long, and that's in the late afternoon window on Sunday afternoon with the Bills traveling to the Chiefs. You and Gino had a conversation about it on Send It In earlier today.
Yeah, it was basically kind of opened up. Wait a second, the line, and I didn't realize it. It was at 2.5. Now, PJ pointed out it's at 1.5 in some spots. And it said, look, this looks too odd. It's saying, hey, come on in, bet on the Chiefs. They're at home. You don't hardly have to give up anything. And PJ, did I ask you the question? Does that look suspicious to you?
Oh, it does. It does, Gene. And maybe you bet the Bills in the first half like, you did it like they would have covered against Philadelphia. I don't have to tell you guys. I mean, the Bills just in these one-score games, especially when they go up against good teams with quarterbacks on the other side that find ways to win these games late, I have a hard time taking them on the road in these kinds of games when the spread's that low. So you're right, Gene. The spread, the numbers are 100% telling you that Buffalo's the side in this game. They're coming off a bye. It should be a good spot for them. Another must-win. Kansas City's coming off a tough game in prime time against the Packers, looking to rebound, but both teams with so much to play for. Buffalo obviously fighting for their playoff lives. Kansas City trying to get the 1 seed. If you're giving me Mahomes under a field goal and at this point essentially a pick 'em, I'm going to take the Chiefs to win that game.
All right, Monday night doubleheader. One of the 2 games on Monday night we wanted to talk to you about. It's Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets. Hey, he's going to win because he's Italian. That's the side I'm taking, PJ. Tommy Cutlets because he's Italian. But you got Jordan Love coming in, and the Packers are playing out of their mind right now. Which side you leaning here?
Guys, I think it's a great sell-high spot on Green Bay. 2 great wins the last couple weeks against the Lions on Thanksgiving, then against the Chiefs in prime time, right? Jordan Love's playing awesome. The Packers are in the playoffs if it started today. Now you got to go on the road. You got to play our guy DeVito on Monday night. I would buy the Giants up to 7. I'd take New York. I don't understand why the Giants are still trying to win all these games, but that's what they're doing. They've won their last 2. I don't know if they beat Green Bay this week, but I certainly think they can hang around and keep it close. So, the Packers, you couldn't buy any higher on Green Bay right now with the last 2 opponents that they've beaten, how good they've looked doing it with the whole world watching. So I'm going to take the Giants in this spot at home as home dogs.
PJ, I want to get your thoughts here on the MVP race. And it came up in this context because, Brock Purdy is one of the favorites right now. But I'm going to make the argument that Christian McCaffrey is actually the MVP of that offense, and he's at plus 2,500. So could the MVP actually go to a non-quarterback here in the year 2023? And are we coming back on Monday saying, after getting by Philadelphia, will Dak Prescott be the MVP leader at that point? Your thoughts, is there any value right now in the MVP race?
I think there is. It's one of the most fascinating MVP races I can remember just because, Gene, like you said, it feels like for the first time in a while, like maybe a position player can win it. Maybe McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill can win. But what also makes it so good is that these teams are going to play each other down the stretch, right? So Lamar, Tua, Mahomes, Hurts, Purdy, and Prescott, those 6 guys are kind of the quarterbacks in the conversation. Well, Lamar plays Brock Purdy on Christmas Day. Lamar also plays Tua and the Dolphins the second to last week of the season. Ravens and Niners might be the battle of the 2 best teams in the league. Ravens and Dolphins might be the battle for the 1 seed in the AFC. Obviously, Mahomes is a big game against Buffalo this week. Purdy's already beaten Dak and Hurts. Dak and Jalen play this week. So I think it's really fascinating. Purdy would be my bet just because the Niners, when they are healthy on offense, are a machine. And nobody can beat them. Nobody can even come close to beating them. So he's playing great. The Niners are putting up a ton of points. I would say the value would be on Tua just because 4 of the last 5 games for the Dolphins are at home. And they're not playing great teams, and we know what the Dolphins tend to do against bad teams. And if they do get that number 1 seed, I think he'll have a chance of winning it. But as of right now, guys, if I had a bet, he's beaten Dallas and the Eagles head-to-head. He's looked good doing it. I'm going to take Brock Purdy as of today to be my play.
Are we completely dismissing the idea that a running back can win MVP in today's NFL? Because I think Peterson might have been the last running back, right?
2017, yeah.
And to think about what he did that season and what McCaffrey is doing this season, I mean, what would McCaffrey have to do that he hasn't already done to at least be in that conversation of a non-quarterback who should be considered for MVP?
That's the thing. I don't know what he could do. It just feels like at this point we've gotten to the MVPs going to a quarterback and the offensive player of the year is going to a running back or a receiver, which shouldn't be the case because, I mean, you guys are right. Like, what more does he have to do? He scores a touchdown just about every game. He's so dynamic running and receiving with the football. I don't know. I agree with you that I think it should almost be him over Purdy, but the odds and just the track record and the way the league's trending, and it just seems like at this point, guys, we're giving the MVP to the quarterback of the best team. And that's why at this point, I kind of feel like it's going to go to Brock Purdy. But, man, I would love to see it going to McCaffrey because if he keeps going at the pace he's going, I mean, the guy scores a touchdown every game as a running back. Like, he absolutely deserves to win the award if he does that.
Well, when Isaiah Pacheco gets in the end zone on Sunday, PJ, we'll be thinking of you, bud.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Guys, and I so badly wanted to talk about Jalen Milroe in the Rose Bowl, but we didn't get there, so we have to settle for Pacheco. But we got time until the Rose Bowl.
We do.
Yeah. Let's save Milroe for another time.
Let's not spend it all in one place, PJ. We'll be back again next week with some more plays, and we'll get closer to that New Year's Day of bliss when we'll have a lot of great college football action, and of course, Week 15 action when we talk to you next week as well. Appreciate the time. We'll be checking you out on the app with Send It In.
You guys are the best. Thanks, guys.
There he
Thanks,
is.
PJ.
PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
Tua is at plus 850 for the MVP, and he's right. If the Dolphins beat the Cowboys and the Ravens and the Buffalo Bills and they ascend to the top seed, sure.
You're asking the Dolphins to beat a team with a winning record.
It's asking a lot.
It's asking a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like Purdy. Right now, it feels like Purdy.
It shouldn't be Purdy. I'd say McCaffrey
I'm
is
with
the
you.
Yes.
I'm with you on that. And McCaffrey will be your offensive player of the year if it's not Tyreek Hill. I mean, ultimately, it'll come down to who's delivering more of a record-breaking performance because they're both doing things that are just eye-popping, and you really can't believe that a running back or a wide receiver can do some of the things that these guys do consistently week in and week out. It's been special.
Well, the way I see it, and because Philadelphia kind of in a tailspin here. I see finally Dallas getting over on Philadelphia. It's a regular season game, mind you, and that's where we're going to come back on Monday. It's going to be the coronation of Dak Prescott is your MVP. Here come the Cowboys, and maybe this year ends up differently for Dallas. Or maybe I'm completely off base, Danger, that Dallas does their traditional December kind of fade away.
Well, I think if you were to poll Cowboy fans, most of them would say we're waiting for it. We're waiting for the meltdown. We're waiting for the game that is the letdown, the game that is the disappointment. You saw it earlier this year.
Dude, I think Cowboy fan is a lot like Bills fan, meaning they're blind to all that. They're like, no, this is it. And then when it happens, it's like, hey, you should have known.
Let me ask you a question, since we're talking about the Cowboys. If you needed an appendectomy, how long are you on the shelf for? I don't know.
We're talking. It's not bursting, right?
No, you need the surgery. You need to get that thing removed. You have to have your appendix removed.
But it didn't burst because, like, if you burst, you're in the hospital.
Right? Yeah, you burst. That's life-threatening in some cases.
Yeah, like a week.
You need a week.
2 weeks. Like I think that would. Wow, you see my future here?
No.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy went in for an appendectomy.
Whoa.
Today.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And he's going to coach on Sunday. Football guys, man. Just different breeds. Appendectomy today, on the sideline Sunday. Sorry, coach, not me. Nope, can't do it. I need a little bit more time. I'm going to be holed up in a hospital bed, and you're removing my appendix. I'm going to milk that a little bit. Not McCarthy. They'll be out there all jaundiced and stitched up on Sunday.
Who was the coach? It was Hugh Freeze. He was the coach of Liberty.
Yeah.
He played against Syracuse. They lost 21-0, but he's up in the press box in a
right.
hospital bed with a headset on.
right.
They brought him into the stadium in a hospital bed.
I remember that. That's right. These guys are just wired differently. It's a little weird.
A lot weird.
We're going to take a break, come back. Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports. We'll talk Bills and Chiefs as Fates at practice today in Orchard Park. On his way back from practice in Orchard Park, he joins us here right around 4:25 in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. It's Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. You've got a wide range of betting options, everything from spreads to player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, FanDuel.com/Mike to kick off the NFL season with me on FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM.
live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills linebacker Von Miller did not participate in practice today. It was a Veterans Day of rest. He'll resume practice tomorrow. For now, things are status quo with the defender as the investigation continuing in Dallas. Head coach Sean McDermott addressing the situation.
Yeah, listen, Brandon and I have already spoken. Again, I respect your question. We've spoke. He's addressed it with you guys. I think that's more than fair. And that's where we're at. I am focused on going to practice and coaching the football team, and that's where we're at.
Bills a 1.5-point underdog in Kansas City. We will be talking to Dan Fates, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus later this hour. Sabres have lost 4 in a row. They're in Boston tomorrow night. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen did not make the trip, so it'll be Devin Levi remaining up in Buffalo. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Von Miller situation.
Mike Danger.
The Bills traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. It's a big one. Chiefs week. You got to get it. This is one you have to have.
Gene Battaglia.
It's the attitude. It's the attitude adjustment I want to see. Go into Arrowhead and knock some heads around.
And I think Sean McDermott's good off the bye.
You know, we got to win these 5.
I'm convinced that this game is going to be a global sport. I think you're going to see a very global NFL.
The Red Wings are going to win this game. Final score is 5-3.
I would prefer that we gain the line with entry.
Absolutely incredible in-season tournament that's going on in the association.
Baseball's hot stove is getting warm. That Juan Soto trade, again, it appears likely that he'll be a Yankee.
Ow! The Red Sox and Yankees made a trade yesterday, headlined by outfielder Alex Verdugo heading to the Bronx.
It's showtime!
That's private.
Everybody found a new reason to blame Dave Roberts for something.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Chiefs week, and we'll talk Bills Chiefs with Dan Fates, BuffaloPlus.com, 13 Wham Sports. He joins us here in about 20 minutes or so. Danger and Battaglia, glad you're with us in the sports bar. Listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We're on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, and our video stream is up for you to like and subscribe, follow along. We're building our little online community on YouTube and Twitch as well, at The Fan Rochester. Quickly, Gene, I don't like doing this, but I lost my temper on Twitter last night over the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, guys, just wake the F up.
Yeah, I saw you, but you said the actual word on Twitter.
I did, and I kind of now I'm like I'm a little ashamed, but I'm that angry about another performance that finds them in this hole. And you know what? Congratulations, you guys made it a game, and you fought back. Don't get into that situation in the first place, and you might actually win some of these games.
We are in a business where every second counts, and just my kind of feel here, people are just where people get upset about the Bills when the Bills screw up, and they get really upset. They do. We know it. Like 12 men on the field, or 13 seconds, or everything that went wrong in Philadelphia. You get upset about the Buffalo Bills. I think it's turned to apathy for the other team in Buffalo, and that's a big problem. And that's where we were at during the pandemic and during, the tank and everything else, that this now all of a sudden is turning into a season of hope, and this is finally going to end this 12-year drought to, all right, you're the aberration here, Danger. And people like Brayton Wilson and real hockey people, but everybody else is like, yeah, no, show me something. Show me. Don't care.
Yeah.
It's football season. I don't care.
Yeah, I hate that. Because it was a season that started with a lot of hope and optimism, and the idea that you had this young core. And I'm trying to think of what it could be, right? Because when we talked to Paul Hamilton last week, he's like, look, they're just not, the guys just aren't doing what the coach is asking them to do. And now I think to myself, well, did you make a mistake in paying all these guys early?
They're too young. They're the youngest team in the league. That's the answer.
Did you make a mistake by saying, here, Dylan Cousins, have this contract. Here, Tage Thompson, have this. Here, Samuelson. Here, like they locked up their guys
before they won anything.
Before you won anything. And I guess there's something to be said for building that trust that hey, you want to be here, we want you here, and this is a mutual agreement, but the performance hasn't lived up to the terms of the deals for any of those guys that I just mentioned. I mean, Jeff Skinner is playing with his head on fire most of the time. And aside from that, I have a hard time looking at this team being like, oh yeah, there's a bright spot. I really struggle. The one guy that's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the year leads the team in goals, and that's Middlestat. You paid everybody else. And so there's a lot to unpack with that team, and I'm sorry, man. I lost my temper.
It can bring it a little closer to home because this is the disappointing thing. Like, at least this was an attraction, and maybe this still works out, but Devin Levi is going to be in Boston on Thursday. What are the odds that Devin Levi is in Boston backing up a Hutton, or maybe he even plays? I said Hutton. My goodness, what year are we in there? Comrie. They're all the same to me. I wanted to see Devin Levi in Rochester Friday, and really, are we going to see that? I'm doubting that now. Amherst, Charlotte Friday, and the Sabres listen anyways tomorrow night. If I may, Danger, there is this idea that is growing. Maybe idea is the wrong word here, actually. Let me phrase this. This fear is growing. This fear that Shohei Ohtani may re-sign with the Angels. Now, none of this may be true, but if you're his agents, of course, you want to humor the Angels owner, Artie Moreno, and you want every little bit of leverage here. And I hope someone in the Ohtani camp is getting to the slugger, telling him, don't even think about this. Do not even consider this. The Angels are a losing organization. They have been, and they'll continue to be with this owner, and not one player, not even you, can fix that. And that is really bad for your brand if you attach yourself to a loser. Normally when a player re-signs with a team, I think people are okay with it. Like, hey, that's your guy. We get it. In this instance, people are going to be angry, like really, really mad. Baseball people are going to be pissed. What a terrible thing it would be for the game.
Think about that. Like what you said there that's sticking with me is that when that not one player can fix a losing organization. I mean, so much so that a guy like Mike Trout, who's, you could argue before Shohei, he's like, oh, he's the best player in the game. Hands down, best player in the game, right? You got guys like me saying, yeah, he's not a winner, though. Can't win. He's not winning anything. Took the easy way out. He took the money. Took the He's with a losing organization. Well, he's out of the spotlight, out of the shadow. He's not a winner.
I would point to him like, what matters to you, dude? And maybe your wife, I don't even know if he's married. Maybe it's a family thing. You like it out there. If that's not the case, why aren't you asking for a trade? There are many teams that would trade for Mike Trout. He's on the back end of the contract now anyways.
Yeah.
Could you imagine him back in Philadelphia?
I imagine he likes it out there. It's hard not to like it out there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you're not getting the hard-hitting media. Every day is 75 and sunny. Yeah. Expectations low.
Right.
What's that to like?
It's always like a thing where we've done this long enough, and we've worked with people in our industry that kind of come and go, and you get interns, you get young kids out of school, and they work with you a little bit, and they get a taste. They go to LA or California, and every time it's happened, every time it's like, oh, you're going out there to visit? You're going out there for a week? You're going out there for a few days? Like, nope, they're gone. They're gone. Well, that will be that. Nice knowing you, and have fun out there in California, because they love it, especially if you're from here, or if you're Mike Trout and you're from Philadelphia or the Pennsylvania area. You go out to Southern California, hard not to like it, but hasn't done anything for his resume in terms of his ability to win championships. Hasn't won anything. I don't know how I would feel about Shohei re-signing with Anaheim. Baseball writer wouldn't like it. Baseball writer wants a Shohei with a more traditional franchise. I mean, if you're a baseball writer, Shohei can really only go to the Yankees, right? Like that's the only team worthy of his get. Oh, hey, baseball writer. I know I was talking about Shohei. You can pull up your pants though. Come on, this is a family show.
Why every time I come on this show, the double entendre and the digs, I'm not going to come on this show anymore.
Oh, okay.
I'm only going to go over and be on WXXI where I can be respected.
Well, yes, they'll allow you to walk into their studios wearing your baseball costume.
As I said earlier in my column, Shohei as a Yankee, and you are stealing my thought, Danger, as you would call it, a take. That Shohei, we can compare Babe Ruth to Shohei Ohtani. It would also be wonderful wonderful if Shohei ended up as a Red Sox.
Oh.
Therefore, the Red Sox, who lost out on Babe Ruth and his greatness by trading him away.
Wait, hear me out for a second. Seattle.
No. What? Why? That's not an original team.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They've never been to the World Series, Mike Dinger. It needs to be one of the original franchises. Let me humor you. I would have loved to see him as a Chicago Cub.
No, sure.
That would be wonderful. Also, I'm very disappointed of them putting Jim Leyland in. Only Hall of Fame writers. Writers should be in charge of the Hall of Fame, not any committee or anything. That's my job.
Yes. All right. Back to Mount Pius with you, baseball writer.
Please read my upcoming article in the Business Journal.
Very good. Baseball writer came in today wearing his baseball uniform, his little costume there. Here's a take. If you go to fantasy camp for your favorite sport, you're nothing more than a cosplayer. You might as well go to San Diego Comic-Con.
Now, I would go in 2 weeks in the sunshine in Florida, fantasy
Wear your
camp,
baseball costume every day,
just shagging fly balls and playing baseball every day. What's wrong with that?
I'm just saying you might as well go to San Diego Comic-Con dressed up as Deadpool. It's the same thing.
I knew a guy, Peter Montemurno. He used to do Fisher football with me, and I think he was in his 30s at the time. He went there. He was the youngest guy by 40 years.
Baseball fantasy camp?
Yeah, baseball fantasy camp.
Yeah.
Mets fantasy camp.
Oh, boy.
How come we don't have a Red Wing fantasy camp? Couldn't we get that
Let's
going?
go, Mace.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, Week 14 starts in the NFL with a Mitch Trubisky, Bailey Zappi matchup. I'm sure Amazon is thrilled that they invested in this product.
Oh, they're going to... You mean there's not going to be this press release on Friday saying record numbers?
Yeah. Both the Steelers and the Pats, they're in quarterback purgatory right now. They've got Buss as their starters. No immediate answers. Here's the scariest part of life right now in the AFC. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Herbert, Burrow, Lawrence, Tua, even C.J. Stroud. You have 8 franchise quarterbacks I just rattled off there who all look really good. How many teams make the postseason? 7. So the inevitability is each season in the AFC, a very good quarterback won't be in the playoffs. And I didn't even mention Russell Wilson. I didn't even mention Aaron Rodgers next season. This is before the potential of Will Levis, before the potential of Anthony Richardson is even explored. For the next several years in the AFC, we can continue to expect someone good not being on the field for the postseason.
Yeah, but those guys you rattled off, I think someone not good, the availability, that's what this comes down to. And if you lose your quarterback, I'm sorry, Cincinnati, and yes, that was fun Monday night, but of those teams you just rattled off, Joe Burrow, he's out. And last year, of those quarterbacks you rattled off, Tua was out. So,
and also Lamar.
Lamar was out too. They made it into their credit. There will come a year where we're having this conversation in Western New York. What would the Buffalo Bills look like this? You want to have an MVP conversation? People are dumping on Josh Allen. The Bills would be, not only be top 10, they might be top 5 without Josh Allen if they didn't have him at quarterback this year.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I'm talking about draft position, top 5.
No question, yes. No, there's no question about it. So just as bad as it might be, and it is bad, this season has not gone the way I think a lot of Bills fans thought it was going to go. At least rest easy knowing you have a franchise quarterback. You don't have one in New England. You don't have one in Pittsburgh. You don't have one if you're the Jets. I mean, you do. It's Aaron Rodgers, but come on, what are we talking about? Another year if you're lucky. So this idea of the playoffs and 7 teams making the postseason, inevitably a very good quarterback is going to be watching it from his couch every winter. Yeah,
and unfortunately for Bengal fans, that's your guys on the couch right now. Tom in Rochester joining us. Our phone number 866-4FAN, 866-4326. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. Love the show, as always. So, I was thinking about this, and it's stating the obvious, but every once in a while you got to remind yourself that while you have a top-tier quarterback in Allen, and we can put him anywhere you want. He's still a coveted player that other teams would want, right, given their situation. It just goes to show you now, with so much money tied up into him and Mahomes and Burrow, how important it is for the front office to absolutely maximize the draft at every single pick.
No question.
And that is the thing that has driven me crazy about the Bills pick. I mean, obviously, we can talk about Elam, and there's been some good picks, obviously some good picks, but you can't whiff on a first, second, or third rounder anymore with that much money tied up into a quarterback. Can't do it. I mean, I know that's the good part of having a franchise quarterback, right? Someone who can lead your team, but the money is tremendous in these individuals, and it goes to show you how spot on the front office needs to be with every single pick and transaction.
And talk about the Bills' opponent this weekend, the Kansas City Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl last year, and they had all those rookies starting on the defensive side of the ball. Rookies, guys that they drafted, guys that they developed, guys that they knew. You're going to play, and you're going to play well. We need you to, because we can't afford to go out there in free agency and buy a competent roster. You're going to have to learn and learn quick, and they did. And it's the scary part for the Bills, for me, when we talk about windows closing, is the window is closed. The window that you were hoping to cash in on was quarterback on his rookie deal. The moment you paid Josh Allen, that window closed. You had 1 year left, on his rookie deal where you could still make moves and maneuver. But once that rookie deal is up and you start giving him the new contract money, forget it. And Kansas City's going through that with Mahomes, and every one of these teams is going to go through it. Burrow's going to go through it. They're going to go through it in Cincinnati. They're going to go through it with the Chargers. The Ravens are going to have to deal. So Tom's point is spot on. Absolutely. You can't afford to whiff, especially in the early rounds. You need to maximize that talent. And it is a little bit comforting to know that you can get a starting quality caliber guy in like a Christian Benford in late rounds. But it's also alarming to know that Kyrie Elam can't get a jersey, and you moved up to get him in the first.
That's it. The moving up. You better be sure, because I want more pulls on here on the lever, because honestly, that's really what the NFL draft is. You can do all your research. You don't really know. And there's also another part to this, too. It's the drafting, and it's the development. Right, like when the Bills traded away the rights to Patrick Mahomes to Kansas City, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you could have been a Buffalo Bill." Well, if you brought him in, would you have developed him the way that Andy Reid did? Probably not. I'm guessing it was all kind of a timing thing. But that's the development of Kyrie Elam. They botched that.
Think about that too. Think about the head coach and what his reputation is in terms of developing. Some of the guys have gotten on the field right away. I mean, Trey White obviously got on the field right away, and you didn't really have to worry about developing him. But it's taken a while for Ed Oliver to have the season that he's having. It's taken a while for AJ Epineza to look like, he could actually command a second contract in the NFL. Because up to that point, we didn't really know if they were going to get anything out of the second.
Edmonds never kind of. Yeah, no.
Tremaine Edmonds is, for whatever reason, he can't get it right, and he isn't getting it right in Chicago either. So there's a lot more scrutiny that needs to be placed on the selections that they make every April, and especially when you're talking about a team that's going to have salary cap issues here and some really, really tough decisions. And think about the offensive line. I mean, you got money tied into Ryan Bates, who's a luxury, right? Right now, Ryan Bates is a luxury. And you've got Mitch Morse. Is Mitch Morse a casualty? We're getting ahead of ourselves here. But, I mean, do you move on from Morse and just say Ryan Bates is a value and he could be our center next year? These are going to be some real, real tough decisions.
Yeah, and when I went on PJ's show today, he just hit me with a straight-up question. Can the Buffalo Bills make the Super Bowl? Here's how I answered it. Step one is making the postseason. I don't know if they make the postseason. Let's be honest. You'd have to win 4 of 5, and that's asking a lot here, considering the opponents and considering how things have gone this year. But if they do get in as a 4, as a 6,
nobody's
going to
want to play them.
Right. Yeah. Right. In this AFC, who's really scary this year in the AFC?
The only thing that makes me nervous about that scenario, if you're the Buffalo Bills going into the postseason, yes, there are a lot of teams that wouldn't want to play the Buffalo Bills, but I think there are also a lot of teams that would look at the Buffalo Bills and say, all we have to do is be physical. We're just more physical than they are. They're soft, they're finesse. We just push them around. I mean, the blueprint is there. You saw Cincinnati do it last year in the postseason, and you've seen teams beat up on the Bills just by being more physical. That's it. That's always been the case with this team. And the Bills have it in them. There are moments where, but anytime that they've lost a game where it's like, oh man, they just got punched in the mouth.
I don't think it's the physicality that's going to hold this team back. I think for whatever reason, the details have just been everything. I'm going to put special teams in there too.
Sure.
Like the special teams have been atrocious this year in Buffalo. We got Dan Fates 13 Wham, who's making his way back from Buffalo, also Buffalo Plus. Before I get to that, pop quiz for everyone. Danger, who leads the NFL in scrimmage yards?
I know the answer.
Okay, for everyone, if you said Christian McCaffrey, incorrect. The answer is Tyreek Hill. He's got 5 games this year of 150-plus yards receiving. That's the most by any receiver in a single season since 2017. That was Antonio Brown. And, granted, there's still a month to go here. And did those Steelers teams get over the top? No. And I don't think this Dolphin team is a Super Bowl threat either. Hill, who should get some consideration for the MVP, he's having a great season. Against a good defense, though, it would know, okay, we're not going to let that guy beat us and let Tua do other things. One in which it won't let, if he can't get 150 yards, what would happen to that offense?
I think that the Dolphins have done an unbelievable job on beating up on inferior opponents. That's it. End of story. Can't blame them for their record, can't hate on their record. You can't apologize for who's on their schedule. But when they've played inferior opposition, they've beat them and beat them soundly. Beat somebody. And then I'll get excited about what the Miami Dolphins could be in the postseason.
That doesn't mean Tennessee this way. 13.5, they're favored.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they should beat Tennessee easily. They should beat Tennessee easily. When do they play the Ravens? It's coming up. It's coming up here.
Yeah,
in a few
I think it's like 2 weeks. Yeah.
Listen, those are the tests I want to know about. Pass those tests, and then I'll start believing that you're more than just kind of like a fraud.
Yeah, it's going to be comfy here. They get the Jets on the 17th. Cowboys on Christmas Eve. Ho, 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 ho. Pass me the eggnog for that one. And then New Year's Eve against the Ravens. And then Buffalo. So those last 3 games. If they win those last 3 games, Tua's your MVP, right?
If you could beat Baltimore, Dallas, and Buffalo to round out the season, and you're the 1 seed, because that would make them the 1 seed.
Yeah, he's the MVP.
Yeah, Tua's probably your MVP.
But I'm not putting money on that.
I don't think that's happening.
No.
Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com with his practice report from Orchard Park on the way next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports. Fan Rochester Sports Update.
A Veterans Day arrest for Von Miller. For now, things status quo as the investigation continuing in Dallas. Head coach Sean McDermott asked the investigation of Miller, will it prevent him from playing on Sunday?
I'd start by saying those are separate to start. And I think that's important that they stay there. But every situation is a little bit different.
Bills a 1.5-point underdog heading to Arrowhead. We'll talk to Dan Fates, 13 Wham, and Buffalo Plus. He joins us next year in the Sports Bar. A trade for the Sabres. Don't get excited here. Eric Johnson coming from Columbus. This for a 2025 7th-round pick. Johnson splitting time between Columbus and Cleveland. He has 1 goal in the NHL this season. Sabres heading out to Boston tomorrow night. They've lost 4 in a row. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Spags does a really good job. I worked with him for a number of years. Kind of came up under him in terms of the defensive backs there for some time in Philadelphia, and he's a great coach. He's got a great staff with him, and they've got great players, that make big time plays. Starting with Chris Jones, so he's a big time difference maker.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott on the Chiefs defense earlier today in Orchard Park. We go to Dan Fates, BuffaloPlus.com, 13 Wham Sports, our guest now in the Sports Bar, to talk a little bit more about today's practice. And we'll start with the sound that we heard earlier, Dan, from Brandon Beane, from Sean McDermott. And I think pretty much all of us could have predicted what they were going to say in terms of the Von Miller investigation. It's an investigation. It's ongoing, and we're going to let it all play out. How are you, Dan?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys. Always happy to be here. Weird day. James, you talked about it was kind of what we expected to hear. I thought Beane wouldn't answer really anything. I think he said more than I expected, and maybe even a little bit more than, frankly, I was comfortable with to some respects. And again, this is such a delicate, nuanced situation. Like this is above. We don't know what happened and things like that, but it was very telling to me when Brandon Beane went above and beyond to say, we're comfortable with where we are, but then would also say we don't have a lot of information. And I think he said 7 or 8 times we're not investigators, and just kind of some weird things to go on top of it. I credit Brandon Beane for talking because I think he needed to talk as the general manager of this team, but the whole day kind of had a weird vibe to it.
It did, and there was one other quote there where he talked about putting the best players on the field regarding the name on the back, the number on the jersey. I'm thinking, okay, that might be something, because if you just went by the Pepsi challenge here, the blind test here, Von Miller has not looked like Von Miller. You could say Von Miller does not belong on the field. Can you make the argument, just from a football standpoint, that the Buffalo Bills would be better off playing a Kingsley Jonathan and just making Von Miller, football-wise, inactive?
Yeah, absolutely. The sense of, I think most fans would agree that Von has hurt this team, especially lately, since he has come back, because who he is as Von Miller has earned him big-time moments, big-time playing time in big moments, and he just hasn't come through. I look back at the Tampa Bay game where he jumped off sides twice, and yeah, they held on and survived that Hail Mary, but he wasn't special by any means. It was the same way in Detroit, or in the Denver game. He hasn't looked great, especially when he's been playing in the biggest moments of games. So I thought maybe this would just take care of things for a week. We're going to let him rest and figure out what's going on with his legal things. But he's going to be at practice. I saw him with the defensive line afterwards. It was the veteran day.
Dan, you're cutting in and out a little bit, so we're going to power through here, try to make sure that we keep you in a good cell there. We know that you're mobile, so we're going to bear with you here. Von Miller being the only Bill, by the way, today, not on the field, getting veterans rest. You buying that this was something that was planned coming out of the bye, or was there more at play there?
No, I hope you guys still got me. Yeah, I'm just heading home from Buffalo. I don't know. I don't think that would really make sense. I will say this. last year the Bills did have 3 players on veteran rest coming out of the bye last year. It was Poyer, Mitch Morse, and Jordan Phillips. So don't say that it's not impossible to have veteran rest coming out of a bye, which everybody thinks wouldn't make sense. But I also think this was a little bit of protecting Vaughn, maybe letting everything calm down for the next 24 hours. I'm not really sure, but it was an interesting day, to say the least, where Sean McDermott also said, it is a very, very serious allegation, and we take it very seriously, but pretty much just said that, Brandon said everything for the team, and we're just going with that.
We're talking to Dan Fates, 13 Wham. Any other reaction from the players that they made available today in regards to Von Miller here, Dan?
Josh Allen, Micah Hyde, and Deion Dawkins also addressed the media at the podium. That's where I was today. Josh and Micah both said the same exact thing. They're supporting their teammate and letting the legal process play out. Take that for what it is. And again, I don't know if there is a correct answer or a good way to answer that question. I will say that Leonard Floyd was asked several times about it, and he said, I'm not talking about another man's business. And then, as media members, you try and say it a little differently, and he would say, I'm not talking about another man's business. It is what it... I don't know. I can't say it is what it is. This is a very nuanced situation, and this is not what this team needs heading into their biggest game of the season.
You get a sense that desperation is trickling down now that you have a desperate GM, a desperate head coach. Is there any feel that I know that they've said we need to win these 5 games, is stating the obvious, but do you feel like you could see a different, or have we been seeing a different Sean McDermott, a Sean McDermott coaching scared the last couple of weeks?
I know everybody wants to be upset about the way Sean played or coached in the Philly game. And I don't really understand why. The outrage of fans. Somehow I end up sounding like a Sean McDermott apologist, which is crazy because that's not what I'm trying to do. But the Philly game wasn't one of the worst 5 games that Sean McDermott has coached this year. They were worse in the Denver game. They were worse in the New England game. They were worse in the Giants game. How about the players on the field make plays? I am getting a little bit sick and tired of every team in Western New York needs to fire their coach because the team isn't playing well. How about the players on the ice and on the field actually play better? You have a 3rd and 15 where Jalen Hurts throws up a Hail Mary to a guy that has 6 catches on the season, and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, all pro safeties, can't cover him. Tyler Bass gets a field goal blocked and an extra point, and a field goal blocked and misses a kick. James Cook drops a touchdown. None of those are on Sean McDermott. And so I'm sitting here kind of going, I don't really know what else you want, because Jalen Hurts was absolutely confused and the Bills had him dominated in the first half. I obviously know how the game ended up and all of those things, but I don't think Sean McDermott necessarily played scared or coached scared in that Philly game. But I do have the sense of inside that locker room that it is, Deion Dawkins says, there's no more hiding. There's no more sugarcoating it. We got to win out. The sense of urgency is turned all the way up.
Is Uncle Dan available for a question here?
Absolutely.
Okay, Uncle Dan, I'm looking at this matchup, and I'm looking at the line movement, and the fact that it started out 2.5, and now it's Buffalo getting 1.5. This is almost like they're saying, hey, come on in and bet the Chiefs here. Is this square money? Is this sharp money? Is this actually a good sign for Buffalo that this line looks, in my opinion, a little fishy here, Dan?
Yeah, I was thinking about that for 2 ways, because I also thought Josh in his career has been really good as a small dog in his career. Add on top of that, I think you're catching the Chiefs at a good time. And again, remember last week, it was everybody. I can't believe Vegas is giving the Eagles 3 points. I can't believe that's so disrespectful to Philly. It didn't matter. I loved the Niners because Vegas doesn't give away free money. So for everybody that's sitting there going, oh my gosh, I only got to lay 1.5 and I get Patrick Mahomes at home, oh, that sounds amazing. Sharp money's obviously back in the Bills. It's not easy to move the line that much between 2 really good teams. And again, this isn't a movement about Vaughn. He has no impact on this line. This is just the people saying, hey, the Bills are coming off a bye. Their offense has looked really good, and the Chiefs' offense stinks.
Is there anything to the Chiefs being in a spot where they're coming off that loss to Lambeau and they didn't look good? I mean, when we saw them lose on Sunday night, I'm like, oh, that's not good news for the Buffalo Bills.
I didn't sense that as much because I don't think that there's much that you can change about this Chiefs team. They are who they are, and they're just not good offensively. Like, I've been critical of the Bills wide receiving room over the last 2 years. The Bills wide receiving room could run circles around these Chiefs wide receivers. And on top of it, Travis Kelce, even if Taylor is in the stands, he still is showing some wear and tear, and he hasn't been as dominant. And I was talking to a reporter this week. It's our conversation's up on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, and I said, what's going on with Travis Kelce? And she goes, he's 32 years old, and you can't run the entire offense over him. So this is a little bit of this. I think this Chiefs team, it's not like they're having a bad game. They're having a bad offensive season. And for the longest time, I always joked around about the fact that me and Danger and Gene, we could all catch passes from Patrick Mahomes, and they would be great. Turns out you need wide receivers that can touch the ball, too.
Dan, you're talking about some of the, you brought up the safeties here. Whenever it's Kansas City or should we just brace that whatever happens here in this game, just be ready for a lot of Travis Kelce in a late afternoon game going against the zone defense?
Yeah, probably. And it's funny, for as bad as I think the Chiefs are offensively, defensively, they're really good. And I still, when I close my eyes and I think about January, I still think about Patrick Mahomes playing in a playoff game at Arrowhead. It's just what I imagine. So I'm not saying that the Chiefs team can't flip the switch at some point. I just don't think they're on the same page. And look, this was also a team, Danger, you talked about the Chiefs coming off a bye. The Chiefs lost off a loss. The Chiefs lost coming out of a bye. That never happened under Andy Reid. So, this isn't the same Chiefs team. They are much more dependent on their defense. The reporter in Kansas City told me that there's a lot of times Mahomes is going over to Chris Jones saying, I need you guys. You guys got to make the play. When has that happened in the last 5 years in Kansas City? So I think the Bills are really, honestly, in a good spot. I thought after they played in Philly, the way it ended, the kid doesn't hit a 59-yarder. We look at this game totally different. Tip your cap. The kid made a 59-yarder in that crappy weather, and now all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're desperate. But I think some things worked. I think this offense has found its swagger back. Josh Allen was unbelievable. And this team, we always say it, will go as far as Josh Allen will take them.
Dan, the Von Miller story wasn't the only bit of news from practice today. We saw the return of Dawson Knox, and the 21-day practice window is now open. Yeah. I'm going to say he's probably not playing this weekend, but I'm curious as to whether or not they were asked about that and what that might mean. I mean, we know how much they started in 12 personnel at the start of the season. Joe Brady, different play caller now. I mean, what do you think the plan is here with Dawson Knox once he does return to the starting lineup?
I know that they're going to want to use him somehow. I think Sean was one of the more proponents saying, the offense is trending in the right direction. Signs are going in the right way. And even when Dawson was out and the offense started to have some better games, Sean was always quick to be and Dawson will be back. And Dawson. And he'd always bring him up. I would like his role to be limited right now. I'm one of those guys, if it's not broke, don't fix it. What's working right now is Dalton Kincaid and running 11 personnel. I don't know how much I love 12 personnel. I know they call it 11 and a half, whatever it is. I would like things to kind of keep status quo. They didn't really, I know, shocker here, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane weren't asked about Dawson Knox today with everything else going on. I know Dawson spoke to the media, but I did not hear what he had to say. But I know somebody said he was excited to get back on the field. Yeah,
Dan, your early returns here, and again, it's only been 2 games. We actually took a call last week. Danger was laughing at it, talking about, McDermott's oh, you got to make Joe Brady the head coach. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 games here. But it's been encouraging, what have been the biggest changes, in your opinion, in this offense? Is this something that the league will catch up to here? What are your early thoughts here on the new Bills offensive coordinator?
Energy. Joe Brady just seems like a good vibes guy. Like that is what this team needed. For so long, even when they were winning and this up and down season, they didn't seem like they were having fun. This offense, we always said, it didn't feel the same. And Josh would say, I'm having a lot of fun playing the game. It may not look like it, but I'm having a lot of fun. And you're like, oh, okay. And then on their pregame against Philly, and Joe Brady's high-fiving everybody. He's slapping hands with defensive players, everything. He's given them the boost, and he's exactly where we said there's something wrong with Josh, right? For whatever reason, we couldn't figure it out. Joe Brady has been that perfect guy to get Josh Allen back to thinking he's the baddest quarterback on the planet. He said that over and over again in his first press conference, in his Zoom. He's like, I'm so lucky to get to coach Josh Allen. He's the best quarterback. Give me Josh Allen all day. And it was like, I'm just going to pump you up. I'm going to be your number one hype man. And that was exactly what Josh needed. And it's paid off because you have seen Josh play like Josh Allen. He's run the ball more. Obviously, it's part of, look, there's no room for mistakes. We got to empty the tank. But I like the fact that they've gotten back to simple things that work. And I think he simplified a lot of the offense. And, I just go back to he brought energy. I don't know if he's really revamping anything. It's tough to do when he had a short week and let alone off a bye. But I think he's just brought energy to that offense that desperately needed it.
The postseason feels like a pipe dream with where the Bills are seated right now and what's ahead of them and what needs to happen. I think there are varying opinions on what needs to happen here down the stretch for the Bills to even have a chance. What's your take on that, Dan? Is it winning 4 of the last 5? Is it winning out? The only chance that they have is if they win out and hope that Miami stumbles a bit here. What's your take on the stretch run here before they get to the postseason?
I think they need to go 4-1. I think they can go 4-1. And I think in a perfect world, if they lose a game to Dallas as an end, I said it right after the Philly game. I said, this team's going to Kansas City and winning. Coming off a bye, this Von Miller thing kind of threw a wrench. I'm still hoping that this locker room can handle it. But I think they go into Kansas City and win. I think Dallas is a completely different team on the road than they are at home. I like their chances there. The Chargers stink. The Patriots are a mess. And then you're getting Miami. And the kicker with Miami is, will that game mean anything to the Dolphins? Will they need to play for the bye? Will that already be locked up? So any of those things. I don't think it's super unlikely. I know it's 21%, but the way this team has played the last 2 weeks, this is the best they have looked all season long. I know they lost in Philly, but a lot of things, so many things had to all go wrong in Philly, and they still almost won. So that's my takeaway. I think they can go 4-1, 5-0. Deion Dawkins said today they know they feel like they have to win out, but it starts in Kansas City. I think the season's on the line. If you lose in Kansas City, it's done. But you look at some of these other teams, some of them will cannibalize themselves. Some of them have no quarterback or Joe Flacco at quarterback that I don't believe in, or Mitch Trubisky. I still think the Bills have a puncher's chance to make some things happen and make the postseason.
Dan, just want to ask you real quick, where's Shohei Ohtani going to be playing ball in 2024?
Wouldn't it be amazing if it's the Braves? I would be insufferable.
Wait, you would be?
Oh,
you walked right into already. That one, yeah.
All right, listen, I would rather, here's a take. I'd rather have him play for the Braves and go back to the Angels. That's the last thing I want.
100%. I would love him to play in Chicago. I think that'd be cool. Get him out of the Anaheim Angels organization or the LA whatever organization they are. I guess the Dodgers make sense. I will say, he wants to play in the postseason. That's got to be the number one thing. Toronto doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I know they've become like the betting favorite. But we'll have to see. I guess if I had to pick right now, I guess I would say the Dodgers just because it would make sense. He's got some familiarity in LA. But we'll see.
Dan, you, Jenna, Mike, doing a great job covering the team at BuffaloPlus.com, 13 Wham Sports. What are you guys working on this week here in advance of kickoff on Sunday afternoon that we can check out?
Yeah, appreciate it as always. We have a new podcast studio. If you haven't seen it, it's really impressive. Brian Suerta, our promotions and creative services guy, put in a phenomenal studio. The product never looks better. Last week we did a Hot Ones challenge for the bye week. If you haven't seen that, Mike almost doesn't make it. I almost don't make it. It's worth it. It's 10 hot wings we did with like 10 burning questions that our viewers have asked. Mike did an update about the playoff picture. Jen and I pretty much recapped what Brandon Beane had to say. And then we also talked to Haley Lewis, who is a sports reporter out in Kansas City. All of that is already up on the channel right now.
Well, Dan, appreciate it. Are you or Jenna, who's going out to with Mike to Kansas City there?
It'll be Jenna and Mike out in Kansas City. I've done that the last 2 years. I've had enough barbecue. It's time for Jenna to head back out there.
And by the way, Dan, just to explain to fans, because I feel like there's a lot of fans that are wondering, like, why is it that the Buffalo Bills only play the Chiefs in Kansas City? Doesn't it feel like they only play them in Kansas City? There's an explanation for that, correct?
Yeah, it's that the Bills aren't allowed to host the Kansas City Chiefs, right?
No, it's a crazy rotation here. And then next year, it would have been Buffalo, Kansas City had both teams actually won the division in Buffalo, but that's not going to be happening.
Buffalo's not going to win the division.
No.
So, and if the Chiefs,
I think you guys are making that up.
Well, we do a lot of that here in the sports bar, Dan. So we appreciate you, man, and safe travels, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Dan
Thanks,
Fates, 13 Wham Sports, BuffaloPlus.com, covering the Buffalo Bills. Break that down. What it is the rotation, right? But the rotation is weird, and because they played during the pandemic year in Buffalo,
in 2020, yes. That was in Buffalo. So think of it this way, because there are 4 divisions, right? In the AFC, you're going to play the one division once every 3 years. Ergo, you're going to play that division at home once every 6.
Right.
So the next time the Buffalo Bills will be hosting Kansas City in that scenario, it will be the year 2026.
Now, which is crazy to think about, but
so this year's matchup in 2023
divisional winners
this is the normal 3-year.
Oh, this
clip.
is rotational. You're right.
This is the clip where they're playing everybody from the division. So the Bills go out to the Chargers, the Raiders and Broncos came here. That's why the Bills are going out here. And the next time in that rotation, it'll be the year 2029. Now, every year you're matched up with when you're not, the ones or wherever you finish up, the 2s, the 3s, whatever. And in that instance, Buffalo has been on the wrong side of that rotation in 2021 and 2022. And now you have 2023, ta-da. But next year would have been the year where in that rotation, the AFC East will host the AFC West. But the Buffalo Bills right now, if they're the 2 in the division, who would that be? That would be what? The Broncos again?
Yeah, they'd probably have to. They'd have to go to Denver.
Yeah, no, Denver would come here.
They would come here.
Kansas City, if Buffalo wins the division, unlikely, they would come here next year. Did I do a good enough job, everyone?
It's man. I got to do some mental gymnastics. I get the rotational between the divisions. So if you break that down in 2020, the Chiefs played in Buffalo the pandemic year. 2023 being the rotation. Now it's the Bills' turn to go to Kansas City. 2026 will be the next time the Chiefs come to play the Bills. So that all makes sense. It's the first place schedule thing that is
the first place.
Throwing me
one
off.
Play 1, 2 play 2. Right.
So
That's
you're
the one
saying
that's-
next year, if let's say that hypothetically the Bills. Let's say that the Bills finish in second place and the Broncos finish in second place, regardless of the Broncos coming here. Why would the Bills host the Broncos next year, regardless of where?
Because that's the rotation. It's the AFC East hosting the AFC
West.
Who's
hosting?
in just the seedings next
Gotcha.
year. So that's why Denver would be like, oh, we're going to Buffalo again. Yay.
Yeah, because we've kind of almost completely dismissed the notion that the Bills could win the AFC East, right? Like that's an impossibility. I mean, you would need Miami to really fall on their face.
You need Miami basically to lose either to Tennessee or the Jets in the next 2 weeks. Sure, Buffalo can make up the 2 game. I don't see it. Your best path, I guess, is the wild card at this point. And maybe Miami, this is another scenario too we haven't talked about. Maybe Miami will be locked in as a 4 or something like that, or a 3.
They don't need to worry about
that
the game.
week 17 in Buffalo. Like, okay, we're playing all the backups. Come on in, Buffalo. The other thing from the Fates thing, Danger, I just want to point out, the idea that this sharp money is going on Buffalo. Vegas knows more than you and I. That looks so super fishy. The fact that you can get Patrick Mahomes only giving up 1.5 at home? Why wouldn't you make that bet? Because it's not the right bet.
Are you leaning Bills? You're leaning Bills for this weekend.
I already said with PJ, Kansas City, because we laid out everything earlier in the week. That's why I hate making picks early in the week, where you got to kind of, when you go on this journey of discovery, and now you're talking to more people, you're taking more takes in, and you're like,
yeah, you're convincing yourself. You're convincing yourself.
Well, watch that line go in the other direction then, perhaps.
Maybe. It is kind of fishy. I'm not there yet. I'm not there to the point where I could be like, oh yeah, the sharps in Vegas know that you got to take the Bills. I don't know yet. I've kind of lost a little bit of faith just based on how it's gone here the last 5 weeks.
Certainly fair.
All right, happy hour is next, and we'll recap everything that went down in Orchard Park today. Brandon Beane speaking to the media. Sean McDermott speaking to the media. We have a little bit more on the Von Miller situation. I mean, by a little bit more, I mean they basically said everything we thought they would say about the Von Miller situation and the return of Dawson Knox to the practice field as well. We'll get into all of that and more next during happy hour, as well as your calls, by the way. You can join us on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. That's 866-4FAN. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 866-4326 if you want to join us in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. It's Mike Danger again for Fan.
Online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
From Bills practice today was a Veterans Day of rest for Von Miller. For now, things status quo for the defender as far as the team is concerned, as the investigation continuing in Dallas. Head coach Sean McDermott addressing the situation.
Yeah, listen, Brandon and I have already spoken. Again, I respect your question. We've spoke. He's addressed it with you guys. I think that's more than fair, and that's where we're at. I am focused on going to practice and coaching the football team, and that's where we're at.
Bills are a 1.5-point underdog in Kansas City on Sunday. The Buffalo Sabres have made a trade. Eric Johnson, coming from Columbus, is for a 2025 7th-rounder. Johnson with 1 goal in the NHL this season. Sabres in Boston tomorrow. The Baltimore Orioles have signed reliever Craig Kimbrell to a 1-year deal. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Von Miller situation.
Mike Danger.
The Bills traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. It's a big one. Chiefs week. You got to get it. This is one you have to have.
Gene Battaglia.
It's the attitude. It's the attitude adjustment I want to see. Go into Arrowhead and knock some heads around.
And I think Sean McDermott's good off the bye.
You know, we got to win these 5.
I'm convinced that this game is going to be a global sport. I think you're going to see a very global NFL.
Red Wings are going to win this game. Final score is 5-3.
I would prefer that we gain the line with entry.
Absolutely incredible in-season tournament that's going on in the association.
Baseball's hot stove is getting warm. That Juan Soto trade, again, it appears likely that he'll be a Yankee.
Ow! The Red Sox and Yankees made a trade yesterday, headlined by outfielder Alex Verdugo heading to the Bronx.
It's showtime!
That's private.
Everybody found a new reason to blame Dave Roberts for something.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
And with that, let's spend the next hour talking about Dave Roberts. Just kidding. Happy hour in the sports bar with
We should
Danger
say
and Battaglia.
happy birthday to Dan DeLorean.
The Dan DeLorean, bounty hunter of the finest audio in the galaxy, setting us up as he does every afternoon here in the sports bar. Another ding. How about Sean McDermott saying, "I respect your question"? No, you don't. You don't want to answer that question. You do not respect that question. You're annoyed that you have to answer questions about your star pass rusher being investigated for these allegations against him.
13 Whams, Dan Fates, Buffalo Plus, joined us earlier on his way back from Buffalo. And like he said, like the mood out there was weird today. And it was a little surprising that, okay, Brandon Beane spoke, but he kind of spoke longer than most would kind of expected. You would expect here's the statement, can't say much more about it. And pretty much that what it boils down to. But there was one thing he said, I was like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't have the audio of Beane saying that these allegations are certainly out of character. That's the quote you're talking about, that out of character.
Yeah, that's not the character. That's not the Von Miller we've known. I'm thinking, okay, did you just kind of look past some of the allegations in the past?
Honestly, the words to me are empty because the action means everything, and they've already shown who they're leaning with. It's Von Miller. I mean, there are fans that can't comprehend keeping somebody employed just for the allegations against Von Miller. And you knew about Von Miller's past because something similar happened in Denver before you signed him, before you gave him all of that guaranteed money, before you made him a part of this organization. So you could say it's not the Von that we know, but your actions are speaking differently. He's going to play. He's going to be on the practice field tomorrow. He wasn't on the field today.
Yeah.
With the Veterans Day of rest, but
no, that was planned though.
Of course.
Do you ding that?
I do. Sean McDermott earlier speaking, Brandon Beane speaking earlier, Beane specifically here, his opening statement on the Von Miller situation, in case you missed it.
Obviously, we were made aware last Thursday about the situation regarding Von. About probably the similar time that you guys heard about it. Checked in with his agent, and then obviously with the NFL, and as you probably read or heard, there was multiple versions of what happened, and so there's not a lot that I can say. Vaughn is here; he'll be a part of the team, and we'll let the investigation and we'll follow the lead of the NFL from that standpoint.
So everything in their world is being swept under the rug, and you can bury it under this veil of we'll let the process play out. Let the legal process play out. We don't have to take action because the legal process has to play out. So Von Miller, who's alleged of doing all of these terrible, terrible things, doesn't look like he's going to be placed on any sort of leave, paid leave or otherwise, and certainly looks like he'll be in line to be on the field come Sunday against Kansas City. No recourse.
Yeah, and the one thing you brought up, Bill, I think fans have every right. You're plunking down money, and you want your team to represent what your community and what you would like. And this is what we don't like. We don't want. And the idea that he's going to be out there, and I thought the way the Buffalo Bills were going to thread the needle, meaning, yes, due process, blah, 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 but PR-wise, not a good thing to have him out there because that's going to have to come up on the broadcast, and that's not what the league would want. Threading the needle is this. Football-wise, he sucked this year. Can we just say that out loud? He has been a waste this year. That is not Von Miller. That is somebody that shouldn't have come back at this point, and I would say he's actually harming, not helping. And it's this hope that all of a sudden old Von is going to show up. Okay, at what point does old Von show up?
He doesn't.
Right.
This is what he is. We've seen enough. It's so much so that with everything off the field, with what we've seen on the field, would you consider releasing Von Miller? Brandon Beane earlier today.
I don't think we have a lot of information other than our conversation with Vaughn and his representatives in the league. Other than, the media reports and things like that.
Pivot.
So
you're not answering the question.
We've not been able to have conversations with people who were on the scene investigating the call and things like that. So, it's very early in the process, and those people in Dallas aren't just going to get they're not worried about the Buffalo Bills. They're going to do what they do on the timeline that they do it. And again, we'll take the lead of the NFL for how we move forward.
So if you were a fan expecting or hoping that these allegations would land Von Miller in some sort of hot water or discipline, nothing right now. Nothing forthcoming, and doubtful that we will have anything.
No, he's right in that last part. Like, Dallas timeline they don't give a damn about the NFL or anything, and that's why when you talk about the contract situation, boy, that would be a nice weight to get out from underneath, right? If you're not happy with this, and I don't know if we get to that week in March where the deadline would be, where you got to pay him a roster bonus if everything is going to be advanced by that point. Their investigation is on their own timeline down there. So there was one interesting quote from Brandon Beane there where he talked about the name on the back of the jersey and the number, and the Bills will put out the best players regardless.
Every week we're trying to put the best 48 players. That's, doesn't matter what, name it says on your jersey or number. We're trying to put the best 48 out there to win. And yes, that will continue to be evaluated every week. And if we feel that, Von is not one of the best 48 that week or all the weeks, then that's what we'll do. But we're hoping it's around a year now that he's had that surgery, and sometimes, it just takes time. I think you saw that with Trey last year as well. It's hard when in a situation where you have an injured player that misses all the offseason and all a training camp, OTA's training camp, you can't really replicate a training camp. So you're trying to work them back, yet practices are not like training camp practices. And then you're in the games and you're trying to find that number of snaps. He's played less snaps than he's ever played. That's a fine line too, because you also have to be like a basketball shooter. You got to get up enough shots to start feeling your rhythm.
Yeah.
And so all those things are into consideration. But every game we're truly going to try and, we got to win these 5. So we're going to try to put out the best 48.
A minute and a half of Brandon Beane talking in circles about his failure. It's a failure. Von Miller in Buffalo is a failure. Never hear anybody in that organization admit to their own failures, but Von Miller in Buffalo has been a failure. And it's going to continue to hurt this team beyond this season. Live with that. And he's a bad guy, allegedly.
I thought the beginning of that quote, okay, they're laying the groundwork when you're talking about best 48. Is Von Miller better than A.J. Epineza right now? Right now.
No.
Is he better than Kingsley Jonathan right now? No. They're like, you can make the football argument very easily. And don't give me the hope. I had a sales manager once tell me, hope is not a plan. Hope he gets back. No, there's no hope.
Yeah. He is who he is at this stage of his life, at this stage of his career. He's had the knee injury multiple times. You saw a glimpse of what he could be in Buffalo at the beginning of last year. And in Detroit, that glimpse faded. It's a failure. He isn't that player this year. He won't be that player moving forward. It's a failure. They're frustrated. You could hear it in Bean's voice. You can hear it in McDermott's voice. They're frustrated that they're answering to the questions about this play. They probably like Von Miller. It's hard not to like Von Miller.
Can I throw the BS flag here too? And others have pointed this out. Like, hey, coming off the bye, the Bills have rested other veterans. Von Miller was the only veteran to rest today. Yeah, it's kind of convenient. You don't want Von in front of the cameras, or here's a picture of Von Miller stretching at Bill's practice today. Like, get him out of the public view.
Right.
Like, that's... don't tell me that this was planned. Stop.
All right, so there's some comments from Brandon Bean on the Von Miller situation. Sean McDermott also speaking to the Von Miller situation.
Listen, I will say that it's a very serious situation. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is very serious, and something that we take very seriously. I take very seriously. Beyond that, again, we've discussed that internally since the time it happened, or the reports that came out, and so. Beyond that, I'm not going to address it right now. Brandon addressed it. We obviously met on it. We've had great communication about it and collaboration, and it is a very, very serious situation and something we don't take lightly at all.
Ultimately, do you hold the head coach accountable for the play on the field? The answer is yes. What about Von Miller's play this season, Sean McDermott, on his star pass rusher?
Well, I think like anything else, you try and evaluate every week, every day at practice, and we'll do that today and as well as tomorrow. Some of what we're doing is to continue to try and get him where he was a year ago, and that's why I mentioned what I mentioned. That process took place last week as a staff. We sat down and said, hey, what else can we do to continue to try and move this thing? And so that's the plan that was put together by our medical staff.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, you could tell if Fates is saying that things were weird today, that there was a weird vibe. The weird vibe is everybody's testy. There's a sense of urgency.
Yeah, the season's been crappy. Now Josh Allen, or Micah Hyde, whoever came in front of the podium, have to answer. He's a good teammate, and we're here for him. You gotta. The last thing you want to do,
right? And so now you've got this distraction. And if you're Brandon Bean, it's like, look, you're never going to admit failure, but this is your failure. You have to wear this. This is your failure. You brought him in thinking you were going to get something that you got for just under half a season. And that's it. And now on top of it all, you've got to clean up this mess and deal with this distraction. During a week when you don't need any distractions, you need to beat Kansas City. Yeah, it's a sad state. I'll give Fates credit when he joined us last hour. there's a lot to be said for the way they played in Philadelphia for most of the game. And ultimately, if Elliott doesn't hit a 59-yard field goal in crappy conditions, we're having a different conversation about this team this week and last week. But the outcome is the outcome, and you can't change it. And here we are questioning everything. And I know that whereas I might be a guy who's out on McDermott, there are plenty of people who will still say, no, it's not all the coach. The players need to execute. Of course, the players need to execute. The players need to be better. But the head coach needs to do a better job putting those players in the position to win, in the position to play better. And you need to make better decisions as far as who those players are going to be. Loyal to a fault sometimes can be a killer. And I think they're, at times, loyal to a fault.
You can write to us on X. You can call us 866-4326, 866-4FAN. Some tweets here, or X's, or whatever you want to call it. Chris writing in from South Central Kentucky. I'll say the only way Bean can say Miller isn't a failure for the Bills is what he's done in mentoring Oliver Rousseau and Epineza. Otherwise, he's been a failure.
Okay. I mean, it's not a tangible thing. But if Von Miller wasn't in Buffalo, you could still have those guys at Von Miller's pass rush academy or whatever he does in the offseason for pass rushers.
For what you're paying for Von Miller, I mean, no, that's you need more on it. Peter writing in, I find it interesting how Sal Mayorana and Matt Perino are challenging the Bills Mafia to stay with McDermott. All right, Peter, we've been saying this, like, Bills fans have to get comfortable with the idea that McDermott, whether they go 0-5 or 5-0, he's back next year. He has enough goodwill in the bank. It's not a take. It's from people we talk to, be it like Tim Graham, other people having that take. Like, McDermott will be back. So why not just kind of enjoy it? Because guess what's going to happen on Kansas City? I'm going to tell you what happens. If the Bills lose, it's fire McDermott Monday, not blame assessment Monday. It's going to be McDermott, go, goodbye. And we'll find something like in every loss here. And I want to also be clear. McDermott this year has been poor in areas. He's been poor. Yet, this is the league. It's 6-6, and they've got this opportunity in the last 5 games.
So there's your practice report recap from today as the Bills come out of the bye and get back to work. Also of note, Dawson Knox back on the practice field for the Buffalo Bills. Sean McDermott giving those injury updates and player statuses heading into this week's worth of practice.
All right, so Dawson Knox, we're going to open up his practice window starting today, as well as Kyer Elam, Dane Jackson. And I should mention your follow-up question to those two is, are they going to play? We're going to take it one day at a time with both of those guys. Dane Jackson cleared concussion protocol. Taylor Rapp had the neck. He'll return to practice full today. And then Von Miller is on a veteran rest day today, really getting him back to his routine that we worked at together last year. I'm trying to replicate that now that we have moved ahead a little bit in terms of days on the calendar. So, and this was planned previous to obviously the latest happenings here. So they are separate situations altogether. So with that, I'll turn it over to you with your questions.
You did say Taylor Rapp is full, Coach. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then Von will practice full tomorrow.
Convenient.
Yeah. When there's less media and we can let this kind of blow over, whatnot.
Yeah, another day passes. So there you have it. Dawson Knox back. What does that mean for the Bills' offense? When we'll see him again? I doubt we see Dawson Knox this weekend.
No, that seems to be their MO. Give him a week or two here. So, but that's a different. He's not tight end one. At least I hope he isn't. That adage, like, you can't lose your position due to injury. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Like when you drafted Dalton Kincaid. You're playing Dalton Kincaid. At what point does he start over Dawson Knox? That point is now.
You can lose your job over an injury. Just look at what's going on with the Giants. I mean, Tyrod's ready to go, except he lost it to Tommy DeVito because he's Italian.
I'm Tommy DeVito, and you want to come down to our party there. We've got at the Tally Ho coming up on the 21st. All right, I'm going to be coming into Rochester that night. Me, New York Giants quarterback Tommy DeVito.
Hey, you Tyrod Taylor, you think you can come in here and start for the New York Giants? Don't you know I'm Italian? Speaking of New York football, whether he wants to or not, Zach Wilson gets to start this weekend for the Jets.
So Diana Rossini had the report on Monday. She's now with the Athletics. She was the one, and to my knowledge, the only one that said, hey, there's some trepidation from Zach Wilson. He's not all about getting back in there. Well, then you had, as you should, the Jets doubling down. You had Aaron Rodgers coming out and saying it was character assassination, whatever. Rossini didn't back off on that today. She said, look, I have talked to people, and it's none of your business who I talk to in that organization. I guess that's also, on the one hand, I want to ding Rodgers for saying, yeah, you know what? Don't say it's character assassination, because then you're assassinating actually the reporter if you have it wrong. But then Rodgers, on the other hand, pointing out, hey, these leaks in the organization, stud as eat here. No more here.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's definitely a problem. It speaks to dysfunction within the organization. If we're going to talk about lies that coaches tell, listen to this quote from Robert Saleh. I've always believed that Wilson gives the Jets the best chance to win. He was benched part of an effort to try everything to turn it around. Lies. All lies. No belief. And finally, in happy hour here, if we can, in the NFL, another little bit of news going. A couple of things. We mentioned earlier how Mike McCarthy is pulling a football guy move. Appendectomy today, back on the sidelines Sunday.
How inspirational.
Yeah.
He's going to be calling the plays, and I'm going to be there out. Dude, you're Mike McCarthy. Don't you need a few extra days to kind of recover from that?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you had an appendectomy? I have not.
Brother-in-law had an appendectomy, and
But his burst.
It didn't. It was close to bursting. And when it was close to bursting, he didn't look well. Like, he changed the shade of color. He was green.
Same thing with my brother. Like,
swollen.
Yeah.
You know something's up, and apparently something was up with McCarthy. So he didn't have it burst, but he did have his appendix removed. And can't keep an appendectomy can't keep him off the sideline Sunday night.
Was he up there getting a massage?
Okay, all right. Speaking of, if we may, a little hot kicker talk in the sports bar. This isn't a lead story, but he is a name. He's a name that we're all familiar with in kicking circles. Mason Crosby. We'll find out if he's got anything left in that leg of his as a longtime Packers kicker. Has signed with the LA Rams. He'll probably be joining that 53-man roster soon. He's on the practice squad. Now their kicker missed 3 kicks in the last 2 weeks. So now it's Mason Crosby, who played in a record 258 straight games for Green Bay through last season.
Yeah, I always gave Mason Crosby the You're Still Here award because he was one of the worst. He was only at 73% in 2021. They brought him back.
Yeah.
Like, why? Because Aaron Rodgers wanted him back. Why? Finally, they moved on. And, well, you're a kicker. You're always going to get that second life. And I just want to point this out here because you gave Tyler Bass that money, but what if this is another game where he misses 2 kicks?
Special teams for the Bills have been a problem this year.
The Bills have a Tyler Bass problem. Can we say that?
They have a special teams problem. They have a special teams problem. There's no question about it. It goes. You trace it back to week 1, the return for the touchdown in overtime. You can trace it to the inconsistencies of Bass. I mean, I guess there is something to saying he's our guy, and you have to keep him confident. But look, you're watching the Rams just cycle through kickers just to try and get somebody that can connect. Well, hopefully he stays healthy, and we'll see. We'll look for an improvement in the kicking game from Tyler Bass. We'll have the game for you Sunday afternoon. Pre-game coverage starts at 12 noon on the Fan Rochester as the Bills traveling to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Kickoff at 4:25.
Just bear with me 30 seconds on that other professional team that just laid an egg. And, well, when you do that, you got to make a trade to shake things up. Eric Johnson from Columbus for a 2027 7th-round pick, a guy who split time with Cleveland and Columbus, 1 goal with the Jackets this year. I'm sure that's going to
Embarrassing.
That'll solve everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's putting bubblegum over the crack in the dam. It's not good. It's not good. I know that a lot of people are apathetic on the Sabres and want to see something. And we maybe went into this season with some hope, thinking that this young core, these young players that have all gotten locked down to this organization are going to step up, and it just isn't happening. It just isn't happening.
It's not worth your time. You know how I know? Because where the Bills are at, let's compare the two. People are angry, as you should be. But you're still invested. Okay, Sabres community, angry online, you angry online. Mike Danger's swearing online. Shame on you.
I know.
Shouldn't do that.
I know. I need to be better than that. I was very, very upset at the start of that game last night.
Sabres, Twitter, X community, very angry. General sports community in Rochester is like, check back with me. When it's worth my time, I'll be invested.
Mm-hmm.
We're not invested in the Sabres. I'm sorry. And we're the station that carries them, okay, in CMF. So I'm just being honest here, Danger. We're back to where we were, kind of in the tank. We're like, all right, it's on. Let's see. But you can make the case that this is even worse because you paid somebody. These are now Kevin Adams guys. So what is the solution? I mean, the solution box, it's wide open here. You fire the coach? I don't want to have,
There is no solution other than the players need to start playing up to the level of their contracts. You paid them all. You paid everybody that you wanted to pay. And if there's a knock on Kevin Adams, maybe you paid them prematurely. Maybe they needed to show you more. Maybe this team needed to win something before you locked down these guys. I don't know. But another disturbing outcome there early in the game. You say, they fought back. It's like, don't need to fight back. Don't put yourself in that position. Ugh.
They are not ready to go. What is it now? The last 5 games, 13-1. They've been outscored in the first.
They're sleepy. They're just sleepy. They go into the game sleepy. It's disgusting. A round of shots next in the sports bar.
We will talk some SU Orange basketball. We'll get you a little baseball take here as well. And you want to talk about sleepy. Do you know who's on Thursday Night Football tomorrow night? Well, we'll have some Gallows humor.
I do know, and I know what the over-under is set at, and I am taking the under. We're going to talk more about that here. And speaking of over-unders and Thursday Night Football, join me, Mike Danger, on FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan, because as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. If you're a new customer right now, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. You could start tomorrow. Pick the team that you want to win outright. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, FanDuel.com/Mike, and join me this NFL season on FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame money line wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
You're listening
It's a Veterans Day of rest for Von Miller. Head coach Sean McDermott saying this was scheduled for now. Things are status quo for the defender as the investigation continues in Dallas. McDermott asked, this investigation, will it prevent Miller from playing?
I'd start by saying those are separate to start. And I think that's important that they stay there. But every situation is a little bit different.
Bills are a 1.5-point underdog in Kansas City. We'll have the coverage beginning at noon Sunday here on the Sports Leader. Sabres have made a trade. Eric Johnson coming from Columbus. This for a 2025 7th rounder. Johnson with 1 goal for the Blue Jackets this season. Sabres have lost 4 in a row. They're in Boston tomorrow night. Devin Levi remaining with the big club. The Orioles signing reliever Craig Kimbrell to a 1-year deal. Keep it tagging the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Bills, Sabres, Amerks. Your home for live sports is 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Yes. The sound of John Sterling getting plunked means only one thing. Breaking news in the sports bar.
Breaking news for baseball, and no, it's not Shohei Ohtani. Juan Soto. John Morosi is reporting the trade agreement being finalized now. Jack Curry and Joel Sherman also reporting this is the parameters. Juan Soto and Trent Grisham to the Yankees. This for, well, this pile. Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, and Kyle Higashioka. That's a steal. And that's a Padre team right now that's having all sorts of money problems. Michael King, I don't know if you knew this or not. He was born in Rochester.
Wait, Michael King is a Rochester, or is he somebody we've claimed as our own?
Well, if you were born at RGH, then you're
then
us. Didn't grow up here, though. Yeah, that's huge for the Yankees to put Juan Soto in that lineup. And I would contend I bat him behind Judge. I want, because Soto can get on base, but I want Judge to see more strikes.
How you feeling, Yankee fan? Big news, breaking news.
Breaking
news. Sports bar. Round of shots now at 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool.
Yeah, I'll stick with baseball here for a second here as, where do we go here? Oh, lost my place. Sorry, Dean.
You want to talk about Dave Roberts?
Dave Roberts. Got a stern warning from his boss as Roberts completely candid about his team's pursuit of Shohei Ohtani, even confirming that a meeting took place, which goes against the request for privacy from Ohtani's camp. USA Today's Bob Nightingale reports that Roberts was scolded by his bosses. Nightingale also reporting the teams that remain in the mix for Ohtani, the Dodgers, the Jays, the Giants, and the Angels.
Dave Roberts feels like the kind of arrogant guy that would just put it out there and say, almost as if to say, like, if Ohtani wants things to be this secret and I'm going to get in trouble for it, then screw him. I don't want him anyways.
He's laying the groundwork. Like, because wherever Ohtani goes, let's say he goes to the Giants or the Jays, who's more powerful? Is it Ohtani or whoever that manager is? Dave Roberts is saying, it's me here, right? Like, it's me.
Yeah, he's marking his territory.
Yeah, I would subscribe to that. Patrick Kane watched the Sabres Red Wings game last night from the press box. I would imagine he was thinking, Danger, yup, I picked the right team. Detroit now in second place of the Atlantic Division. There's 2 teams, right? One made some moves. The other 5-3 was the win. In terms of point percentage, the Sabres at .423. That is last in the division. Eric Comrie was no bueno. 4 goals on 22, make that 26 shots, making 22 saves. Things don't get any easier. Buffalo hosting Boston on Thursday night, where Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen remains sick. He did not make the trip, so Devin Levi traveling with the Sabres tomorrow night. Do you see Levi then coming back from Boston and then starting in goal for the Amerks on Friday night?
Man. I mean, that would be a massive bummer for any Amerks fan who had their designs on plunked on money specifically to see Devin Levi at home against Charlotte on Friday. But look, this is a circumstance. What are you going to do? This is what we've always been.
Can we just move on from Comrie?
He's not the guy.
No,
he's not the guy.
We're wasting time.
He is not the dude. That much we know. Yes.
for the first time ever, we had a Major League Baseball draft lottery. It was won by Cleveland. The Guardians had a 2% chance of winning it, but they will be selecting first overall. Oakland had the best odds. Sorry, 18%. Top 5 now. This will be the order. The Guardians, the Reds, the Rockies, the A's, and the White Sox. The Red Sox will pick 12th, the Mets 19th, Yankees 26th. The Major League Baseball draft, it's going to be 2 halves. First half will be on June 4th, second on July 13th.
Is there a bigger zero in professional sports drafts than Major League Baseball?
Yes, I would agree with that because at least you can project, whatever is at the top of the NHL draft, that player is going to be a top 6 forward or whatever it is. Nobody comes in right off the bat.
And they make it, at least the NHL has made it an event. It's an event when it comes to the city that it's in. Major League Baseball?
It's like they don't want to even acknowledge the college game or the fact also, Danger, that you haven't kind of taken in the international players like the NBA does.
Right.
Like you have this weird posting system and bidding system.
All these other leagues doing it the right way in Major League Baseball.
So why can't a team draft Yamamoto? Oh, also the Mets owner, Steve Cohen, flew to Tokyo.
Oh.
Come on, Danger.
Looking to close it, huh?
It's the season of optimism. Let me hear those tones.
There's only one thing that matters, Cohen.
Because only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets.
Gene, don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to yourself.
Bring your kid
because you know how this goes, and you know how it
Guaranteed.
ends. And you got Cohen over there, and it's not going to happen. He's going to end up with the Yankees, and you're going to be upset. And don't. I'm not allowing you to get excited about this.
Cornell's listen, it's a time.
I know it's a season of optimism.
Yeah, like every fan base should be excited this year. Cornell, they had a late rally. Yeah, they couldn't close it. Syracuse holding on for an 11-point win. The Orange moving to 28-0 all-time at the Dome against the Big Red. New football coach Fran Brown spoke at one of the media timeouts. He did not say it's a great day to be an Orange.
It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
If he really wanted to win over the crowd,
hey! It's good to be here at Syracuse University. Later on, I'm going to go and get some hats. And maybe this weekend, I might go see a Bills game.
Now, what's the hot dog in Syracuse? They have Salins and Buffalo.
No, I'm going to have some salt potatoes.
That's it.
I'm going to have some salt potatoes. And then after that, I'm going to go to the fairgrounds.
That's what he needed to sound like. Did he sound like that?
I'm going to go to the armory. Right? That's where everything's happening.
Got to go to the armory?
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to go up to Buffalo, and I'm going to go get some hot wings and blue cheese. And then after that, I'm going to take my kids to the Bills game.
Then after that, I'm going to go to the Dome and watch the Orange play Cornell.
I'm Fran Brown, new head coach.
It's a great day to be a part of the Orange.
We finally, Syracuse, by the way, will be playing Georgetown in D.C. on Saturday. That's an 11:30 a.m. tip time for whatever reason. Finally, who is excited for Thursday Night Football? We've got the Steelers and Patriots. Feel the excitement. Mitchell Trubisky getting the start at quarterback for Pittsburgh. In place of the injured Kenny Pickett. Najee Harris cannot hide his excitement when asked about his quarterback's leadership. It's fine, I guess. How would you describe his style? The follow-up question. Vocal, I guess. Somehow I don't think Amazon is going to be boasting about numbers this week.
Yeah. This is it, right? Like the Steelers have to move on from Pickett. They can't make the same mistake that New England is making. Your quarterback is a bust. Pickett is a bust. Mac Jones is a bust. Like both of these teams now, they're in the quarterback market.
Okay.
They have to be.
Well, okay. So, but if you're New England, and this is what Bill Belichick can sell, if he wants to come back next year, he can say, we are in a position to draft one. What do you do if you're the Steelers? Like, who's going to... You don't have really the capital. Is there... I'm trying to think, is there like a backup veteran in the league right now that you can go say, hey, I want that guy to come in and kind of guide us a little bit? Like the kid in Cincinnati. Is that anything real there?
Sample size is a little bit small for my liking, but there was something about watching Jake Browning take command of that offense on Monday night that made you think, he looks better right now than a lot of quarterbacks who are starting games regularly. I mean, he looked better in that game against Jacksonville than Josh Dobbs has looked in Minnesota, than Kenny Pickett has looked in Pittsburgh. Anything that the Bears have trotted out for sure. Hell, he looked better than Jared Goff last week. So there's and they're a first place team. So there are a couple of teams there that are in really tough quarterback situations. Dang, shoot, shucky darn. Feel so bad for both of those organizations. How will they ever recover from these lean times?
I know. We should feel bad for Boston fans. They don't win enough.
Yeah. I'm cueing the Sarah McLachlan right now. Is Sally Struthers still alive? Can we get Sally Struthers to do a PSA for New England sport fan? Let's get to last call next in the sports bar. The most dangerous words in all of sports talk radio.
Back to the phone.
We go to the phones at 866-4FAN if you want to join us. 585-866-4326. That's the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. And by the way, fire up your next holiday party with award-winning barbecue catered from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. Good Smoke Barbecue's mouth-watering pulled pork, savory ribs, tender brisket, all will create an authentic slow-smoked barbecue fest for your guests for any event. Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub delivers the perfect blend of barbecue flavor and festivity. Visit goodsmokebarbecue.com, goodsmokebbq.com for the catering menu and order form. Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, modern barbecue experts. 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, and goodsmokebbq.com.
866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
All right, it's last call before we get to John in Rochester. Tomorrow on the show, as we are joined every Thursday afternoon at 3:25. Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy Sports, help set your Week 14 lineup here. We're getting close to the playoff season here in fantasy football. And so Andy will help you with your push and get you a winner. And also, we'll go back to Kansas City and our Odyssey Sports sister station, 610 Sports in Kansas City. 4:25, we'll be joined by Alex Gold. Talk more Chiefs.
And he's also part of the BetQL network, so it'll be interesting to get his take here on how to play this Bills-Chiefs game.
Very fishy line. Very, very fishy line right now.
Yeah, the sharp money is going on Buffalo. Are you encouraged by that? I know this guy certainly is. Hi, John. How are you today?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I got to tell you, I'm pumped up. We're only, from what I heard, we're only 1.5 point underdogs, huh?
That's it?
That's it. So that means on a neutral field, we'd be favored. So we're going to win big. I'll tell you that now.
Vegas thinks we're a bunch of suckers. I think that's what that's telling you.
But I got to tell you, the Chiefs really got screwed against the Packers. I'm happy that they lost, but that was one of the worst non-calls I ever saw.
All right, John, thanks for calling. John just wants to push my buttons. I don't want to talk about blown calls. Don't put yourself in a position where one call determines the game. It's the worst.
John, I hope to see you out at Three Heads
coming up. That's coming up Friday, 3 to 6. We'll be at Three Heads again for another Friday Football Talk Live. We'll get you ready for Bills Chiefs this weekend, and we'll be enjoying some cold ones, some tasty offerings from our friends at Three Heads as well. We've got Bart Winkler next on The Fan Rochester. Talk to you tomorrow at 3.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.